MIDDLEKAUFF.
Hey, hey.
Oh, no better way to start the show on a Sunday night than hearing the sound of the lock.
Just looking in, guy. We were once you placed the bet, we were in the twos. Now we got 4Gs. So it's called storming back, baby. We've had our back against the wall a couple times, but every time we've responded, kind of like Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers.
Back-to-back wins, right? Is that what? Yeah. 11
Back
straight, lost 3, 2 in a row.
Yep.
Like,
Feels good.
We're lock of the week, Bengals +3. Won by 5. Made it fun. What's up, everybody, on this Sunday? Hello to everyone on YouTube if you're watching this stream live or if you're watching it back after the fact. If you're listening to the podcast, hello as well. We always appreciate you. Go to iTunes. Leave us a review. 5 stars. Leave a question for the mailbag and get in that. This is a big week. This is the start of a big week, holiday week, of course. But the Niners also play on Thursday. We got 2 Monday games. We got 2 Tuesday games. So there's a lot on deck here the next 4.5 days.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. Let's fucking go. Let's go, baby. Playoffs. We're rocking and rolling, guy. I'm fired up. I feel great today.
No Kid Hungry.
Oh,
take those good vibes and send them over to nokidhungry.org/ham. We are up over, last check, I think we're over $21,000. I mean, I know we're over $21,000 now, thanks to many of your contributions. If you haven't jumped in yet at nokidhungry.org/ham, do that. We really appreciate it. They appreciate it more than we appreciate it. It is a incredible cause, especially during the holiday season, finding ways to help families, communities, and kids in need of food eat. nokidhungry.org/ham. We have a goal of $25,000. We're coming down the stretch here, John. Can we get there?
I think when we get our next update, we might. No, to me, we're well over 21. I thought we were almost at 22, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying we're over 21. I have 21.6, whatever it is.
Hopefully, just keep on swinging. Everything's tax deductible, so give us your donations during these holiday seasons. We need you people.
It's a great week for Tito's as well. We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. So many great recipes along this holiday season, John. Whether you get to include some Tito's in your holiday celebration, whether you need some Tito's for your family time, whatever it is for you, Tito's Handmade Vodka, #1 vodka in America.
Make yourself a Tito's toddy. You know who might not need a double Tito's tonight? Is Kyle. He might just need a single. Just get him a cocktail. Now, Richard Hightower might need about 7. But everyone else on the team just deserves a normal cocktail. Enjoy it. Smile on your face. Tito's toddy. Make yourself a Tito soda. Props. Hey, guy, John Daly and little John Daly, They won the PNC championship today.
Oh. Wow. So a John
props
Daly
to the
in his honor. A John Daly in Big John Daly's honor.
Yep.
An Arnold Palmer in little John Daly's honor, right? How old is he? Like 17 or 18, college age.
He freshman at Arkansas, so he was.
So he's not there yet.
A little under the age, but I don't think that stopped Big John back in the day. So what's once you get in campus, anything goes. Get Tito's.
But let's be very clear: Tito's is made to be savored responsibly.
Sure. We do this above board here.
6 times distilled in copper pots, not columns. It's more labor intensive. Yes, but Tito himself, the man, the myth, the legend, knew it would be better that way. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas, 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. No matter where you're going for the holidays, bring a Tito's along with you. And, John, make sure that wherever you go, you show up smooth and ready to party. You go to the website at manscaped.com, they 10% off. You use the code HAM, that's 20% off and free shipping. Find the right tools for the job. Make sure you slide down the chimney smoothly with that skin-safe technology, manscaped.com/ham. Or manscaped.com, promo code ham.
Promo code ham. 20% off. Obviously, you got the Lawnmower 4.0, best ball trimmer in the history of ball trimmers. You have the Weed Whacker, which I've been using a lot. Gets those long nose hairs. You never want to be one of those guys where the nose hairs hangs over the mustache. Awful look. Pulled it off in the 70s and 80s. Doesn't fly with our generation. You have shampoo conditioners you can get from them. You have body washes. You got ball deodorant. You got it all. But to me, the Lawnmower 4.0, I use probably every other week. And the Weed Whacker, I cannot recommend enough. I use it all the time. Manscaped.com, promo code HAM, 20% off. Get it for your dad. Get it for your brother. Send out presents to the people. This is such an easy. It's a BP fastball, guy.
Yeah. Hey, Shanna, did the carpet match the drapes?
So, Santa's a busy guy. So, just have Santa deliver these and you'll be in good shape.
Yep. What a gift. Manscaped.com, code HAM, gets you 20% off and free shipping. Unlock your confidence. And always use the right tools for the job with promo code HAM. Iceman here says enjoy responsibly. Don't drink and drive, especially the holiday season. That is always a good reminder. Be smart. Don't be stupid. Okay.
Don't be stingy if the Uber's upcharging you. It's doing the holiday rates and double charge. Just do it.
Yeah. Don't do anything dumb.
Get in an Uber,
please.
get in a Lyft, and
want you all to be safe and happy and have a good holiday season.
And have freshly shaved balls.
Yeah. Exactly.
Come on, guys.
So, Niners showed up, John. Well, almost all the Niners showed up today. We'll get to that. But Niners took care of business. ATL. We didn't have one of the hallmark close games for the Niners and the Falcons. We've had some weird ones over the years.
Pretty easy cover. It was one of those I was thinking, it could have been a lock of the week, though early on we would have been sweating it. But it was a pretty easy, smooth ass kicking. And let's face it, I mean, they kind of got gifted a touchdown on the Arden Key sack that is somehow he had to jump. But regardless, the Niners skill guys on a completely different level than anything the Falcons could roll out. I mean,
Falcons look slow.
Sometimes I think when you just watch, a specific team very, very closely, and I know sometimes I think about it with us, like, are we too close sometimes on nitpicking Jimmy and some stuff just because you're in the fire? But I think sometimes we're critical. Obviously, we'll talk about the DBs, and their defense relative to the rest of the NFL is still pretty damn good. Like, the Falcons' defense is atrocious. I mean, they're really bad. No pass rushers, really no team speed. Now, the Niners have blue-chip guys that play well against high-end defenses, but today was, it had a little feel like you would see, you call some games early in the season, right, when it's like Oregon versus,
Stony Brook.
State. It just won it. But wasn't Stony Brook actually kind of a close game for a minute?
Yeah, it was. They were no Pepsi State.
So you get Pepsi State rolling in.
That's my favorite non-directional school.
But then as the game plays on, usually in the third quarter, Stony Brook taps out. That's kind of what happened today. Matt Ryan slow, can't move. They're missing some players, and it's 31-13 where you don't really sweat it at all. To me, once the second half hit, you're just thinking, no injuries, especially with a short week. And can they get some of those guys that didn't play back for Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you described, the moment, which is consistently just the most. And, to me, like the Arden Key penalty for the roughing the passer on 3rd and 4, that leads to a touchdown. And immediately, instead of being, maybe they kick a field goal there and maybe they would have gone for it on 4th down. I don't know. And you stop them. All of a sudden, it's tied at 10-10. Where it felt like the Niners were about to pull away. But then the Niners get the ball immediately, touchdown. Halftime comes, they strip sack, get the ball, touchdown. It's 24-10 in 2 possessions. But the thing about that Arden Key, that bullshit, just land with your weight on the quarterback, sometimes I think I hate every version of that play, even when the guy does drive the quarterback. But there are some where you go, all right, in the spirit, I hate that rule, but in the spirit of the rule, that's a guy punishing the quarterback, right? That was not Arden Key punishing the quarterback, but it feels like when the referee calls it, the referees have they have killed the part of them, of their own selves, that know that that's a bullshit penalty. They just throw the flag. They're like, look, guys, I'm not going to have some internal struggle about whether this is right or wrong. I'm throwing the flag because that's what they tell me to do. Just emotionless. They're not even hearing the arguments. That one on the scale of bad to really bad was really bad. And it's the Niners are lucky they were playing the Falcons today. Arden Key looked like Khalil Mack in that game.
One issue I have, Guy? I was just looking at the stats, seeing how many sacks he had, because I felt like he had 3. Really, he had 2. But when you get a penalty, right, a roughing, a late hit, a personal foul on, you probably, I bet a lot of times over the last, especially like the last half decade, you beat your the offensive lineman. So you are doing the right thing. Now, the penalty, if you're going to give the penalty, you should still get credit for a sack. Like I feel bad for defensive players that get the penalty taken away. It's like I fucking drubbed the offensive tackle. And that didn't necessarily happen on that play with Key because it was kind of a late reaction. But think how many sacks get taken off the board over the years with these. Like these defensive linemen get paid for sacks. Like NBA players get paid for points, you know?
Yeah, to me, I would differentiate. I would make that play a sack. Now, you hit a guy low or you grab a face mask, I wouldn't make those sacks. But that play, I would make a sack. That's a good call.
Yeah. Just looking out for Arden Key, who I saw he had 3 sacks as a Raider. He has 5 now, and technically should have 6 if that thing had counted with the Niners.
Yeah,
through 13 games. So
the Niners, just part of this is how I think part of the question from that game is how much is it that they played the Atlanta Falcons, that they look fast, aggressive, and I would say it's a lot of them that like consistently now they've changed defensive coordinators. One of the signatures of a Kyle Shanahan team is they play hard. Like they do. When they've been bad, they play hard. When they've been good, they play hard. They do play hard. They fly around. Fred Warner was good today. Tart was all over the place. Obviously, their offensive players, Kittle and Deebo, all their running backs.
How about Fred?
Yeah, Fred was really good. Play with aggressiveness. So they were like the Cardinals played a bad team today and were not ready to play. The Niners played a bad team and were ready to play.
We'll get into the Cardinals later. It is a little bit different when you're, a 10-win team, right? We've seen it before with the Niners happen to the Falcons. Again, the Cardinals are coming off a loss, so it's not like they had won 4 straight. But the Niners, to me,
but now because now there's other 10-win teams around them, and
But but remember the Niners, they had to go till the last week as part of being a 10, 11, 12-win team. Like the Niners have no margin for error, which I give them respect for coming to play and kicking ass and taking names, but they had no choice. Like they have they're hanging by a shoestring, really, these last 3 weeks, right, with the playoffs, getting in from the Minnesota game. They had to keep maintaining it, and they've done it. Give them credit. They came to play. They kicked fucking ass. They should. My mom can tell they have 7, 8 guys that are on a completely different level than anything. Like, to me, the only guy that jumps out for the Falcons, like, I want that guy, would be Kyle Pitts. It's like, I want that guy. Other than that, Jeff Wilson's a good example today. To me, Jeff Wilson is not as good as Elijah Mitchell. Just evaluating him this season, just his cuts, his elusiveness, he's just a little stiffer. But today, averages 5 yards a carry, rush for 110 yards. Like Jeff Wilson against really good teams, where Elijah Mitchell might get you 80, like to me, he's probably at like a 40. So he was able to be a very, very productive player. And I'm not diminishing like what he accomplishes in an NFL game. It's difficult, but you're playing a team that somehow was 6-7 coming into this game. To me, they felt more like a 3-10 team when you watch them play. It's remarkable they got 6 wins, to be honest with you.
I don't quite get it when I watch.
They beat the Giants. They beat the Jets. They beat the Dolphins when they were shitty. They beat a Saints team missing a quarterback. They beat the Jags. They beat the Panthers. So a lot of their wins have come against really shitty teams, and the Dolphins, who actually are not shitty now, 7-7. Though when you look at the teams they've beat a lot of shitty teams too. So
I am enjoying Tuanon, the Tuanon movement. The people on the internet that say acting like Tua is good. Although I feel like we kind of started it, we just didn't call it Tuanon. But he outplayed Zach Wilson today. Although he had a late pick 6 that was bad. Atlanta sucks. They're like if the Jerry Matt Ryan runs a lot for a guy that can't really run.
Well, he has to. His offensive line's terrible. It's a huge reason Dimitroff got fired. Their offensive line, and they've invested high picks over the years. You don't need to be, some offensive lines, Big Duke, right, or some fucking Jeff Schwartz breaking down line play. It's clear. Now the Niners have a active front 4, but holy shit, their guys are bad. I mean, they're just he's in the firing line, it felt like, every play. And it ain't just Bosa, right? It was all their guys were kind of feasted today.
I mean, from the first drive when they took over on the Niners' 9-yard line and they went for it on 4th down, and the Niners swarmed on 3rd down. I don't think it's a game to make any big proclamations off of because, again, Atlanta sucks. But I do think for a year that started and continued with the ghost of DeForest Buckner being a constant conversation, I think this defensive front on balance of the year has played well enough that, if they keep it up and let's say they win a playoff game and they're playing like this, that we might reach a point where we don't have to hear about DeForest Buckner anymore. That would be a welcome to me. I'm so tired of talking about, like, out of nowhere, just like a DeForest Buckner conversation comes up. Like, it wears me out. And I think they're pretty good up front. Like, this is not
I noticed him a couple times last night. He's
he's fantastic. He's just fantastic. But you don't have to be as good. You know, they're doing this without Kinlaw, right? Doing it without Kinlaw.
Well, they did it today without Kinlaw, Greenlaw, and Al-Shaair, right? I mean, they did it today without a lot of firepower. Now, Kinlaw's been gone. I mean, Kinlaw may never come back. Like D Ford, he just goes away, and they're just rumors like, are they going to cut him? It's like, yeah, who even cares? Like, but I mean, number 51's been one of their better players this year, and he was gone. So I give them, their defense showed up kind of with the mindset back to what I said a little. I mean, it's not quite, because the record, you had to take them seriously, but they showed up more like a college game where the team, like let's say Oregon was playing like a Washington State, right, or a UCLA. We know we're better than you, but we got to come to play, and they did. It's, to me, that was like a conference college game where you have a couple good players, you have a pretty good record, but we are fucking far superior, and we kicked your ass, and we're at home, right? And that's just what haven't come accustomed to with Kyle at Levi's. And here's the other thing, Guy. Winning this game and just taking care of business because of the shitty start now allows you, we'll talk a lot more probably about the Titans game on Tuesday's pod or Wednesday's pod, but you give that game, coin flip, you win that, all of a sudden we talk about you get the Texans the following week, you're a 10-win team. And that, you know, we were very critical of Kyle. Listen, he did not have a great start to the season. Neither did his players, but the players reflect Kyle. This is football. The coach, everything reflects the head coach. And we'll get into Hightower later, and I'm going to start putting that on Kyle as well. But like ultimately, it's a bottom line business. It's black and white. Do you win or do you lose? And you get to 10-7, you cruise to a playoff spot. Like, you know, it's one thing to make the playoffs at 8-9. We're like, you know, remember the Bears last year were 8-8, and I don't think most of their fans really give Nagy credit for that. Like, we're not giving you a playoff berth, like a normal playoff berth. To me, at 10-7, I give you credit, right? That's a real record.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially when it's you overcoming.
Because 10-7 feels more like the old 10-6 than it does the 9-7, whether that's fair or not.
It's a double-digit number. I mean, tens are different than nines. So I think it is fair. And I think it's different when it's you overcoming adversity on the fly. There's not a lot you can do, you know, for a team in a season. Like, these are adverse situations. You got cornerbacks every week. You got running backs in and out. You've got, I mean, they had a lot of injuries early on offensively. Ayuk pulling it together. Like, you don't have a lot of moves within a season to improve your team. And they've become a better football team over the course of the year. Now, part of that is, you know, Kittle getting healthy and Ayuk breaking out and Deebo just being Deebo. So they've been able to weather some of that storm. But I mean, it's a credit to them. Like, that's where the 10-7 to me is when it felt like you might miss the playoffs. You go 10-7. It's really impressive. Now, like you said, we'll talk about Thursday night, but there have been enough games this year in the NFL that weird stuff happens. A good team loses to a bad team. That I think it's easy after you dominate a bad team to go, that's what was supposed to happen. That was a bad football team. But I mean, it was in some ways, honestly, it was more dominant than the final score. I don't know where the yards per play end up, but.
I wasn't as locked in the fourth quarter, but
yeah.
I mean, anytime you have a game that's over going into the fourth quarter, you feel pretty good about it, right? It's the NFL. It's in December. You're fighting for the playoffs. I think I'm not even doing them enough. I'm almost doing them a disservice. You fucking have a game where you're cruising in the fourth quarter. That's a big deal in December, right?
Especially when you're like what they are right now, right? Which is a 6 seed level team. Like, they're not a 2
you're not
seed.
you're not like 11-2. It's like, are they going to be the 1 seed? That is not the case.
They entered the game at 7-6, and you would say right now at 8-6, they are. I don't know if I'd say they're better than the record, because here are the other 8-6 teams: Indy, Cincinnati, LA. There's not another LA Chargers. There's not another 8-6 team in the NFC, which is kind of weird, but there's not.
Because the AFC's depth is better, even though the NFC's better at the top.
Yeah, like Buffalo's 8-6. I didn't mention them. They're also 8-6. In the NFC, you've got 8-6 San Francisco. Then you've got football team as the 7 seed at 6-7. Then Minnesota and Philly and New Orleans are 6-7. Atlanta's 6-8. Like, it's
Well, you and I think everyone listening, would not be confident the Niners are going to the playoffs if they were in this mix of the Colts, the Bengals, the Chargers, and the Bills, right? You'd be like, well, holy shit, they got to run the table? You know?
Right. Yep.
But they benefit from the NFC at the bottom is just shitty.
And really, Cleveland hasn't played yet. Cleveland is 7-6. Cleveland plays on Monday at 2:00 Pacific against the Raiders, so they could also be 8-6.
Cool.
So,
Can't wait.
so there's gonna, like right now, and if Cleveland, we'll see if Cleveland wins or loses that game. But like the point is, one of this group, Cincinnati with a win today, jumped from out of the playoffs to into the playoffs, and I think they pushed Buffalo out. And so one of those teams, Indy, Cincy, Chargers, Bills, one of those teams is not making the playoffs in all likelihood.
But isn't that group a good example? Like the Niners beat the Bengals in Cincinnati, and they were up 14 points in the fourth quarter, and they had a knockdown drag-out game with the Colts in a rainstorm, right? And watching the Colts last night, I think there are a lot of similarities to the Niners. Their teams are built a little bit differently, but like the Colts are good. The Niners are good. Now, relative to their conference, does that mean they're going to win multiple playoff games? It does feel like the Colts would be more likely just because the matchups. The Niners just do not. The Niners just do not match up with Green Bay or Tom Brady because they have two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and the Niners can't cover anyone on the outside. That's just like, to me, it's a matchup thing. They cannot cover wide receivers, guys.
I saw them play Green Bay this year when they weren't playing well, and they almost beat them. And they've played well against Aaron Rodgers historically. So
yeah, I just
it's not my preferred matchup, but I do not look at the Packers like the Niners can't beat them.
So you view Tampa in a different world as the Green Bay? Because yes. I cannot view Tampa as a good matchup for the Niners. They have a great run defense, and they have sweet wide receivers. I would say
Tampa's also just an uncommon opponent. Like you've done it against Green Bay before, many
True.
times.
I'm not saying that the Niners.
But to answer your question, yes, I do view Tampa as better than Green Bay. Maybe I shouldn't. But.
Yeah, I think Green Bay's gotten better as the season gone on. Again, the Niners have a fatal flaw, and you're playing the greatest quarterbacks ever. Like, that's just that fatal flaw of, what's your fatal flaw? Like, you don't have D tackles? No, I don't have corners. It's like, who are you playing? Oh, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Like, it's hard,
Yeah.
It's hard when the Niners play Joe Burrow, let alone some of these guys. But, like I'm saying, I think the Bengals and the Colts are solid. Like, they're impressive, solid teams. You could argue the Niners might even have slightly more high-end players than those two teams. So if they all played each other 10 times, maybe the Niners probably beat the Colts 6 out of 10 and maybe beat the Bengals 7 out of 10. So maybe they're better in both, right? If you just had a big sample size. But that's fine. Like these are real teams. And the Niners have turned themselves in, let's face it, a month and a half ago, like the biggest underachiever in the league, like a disaster, to very respectable. Like going to have a chance to have a respectable season. And honestly, kind of an impressive, gritty season because it was headed the wrong way fast.
Yeah. And a shot to, legitimate shot to win a playoff game.
Yeah, they ain't going to be an 8-point underdog, right?
No, even if they're going to Green Bay.
Does feel like Green Bay and Tampa
they're not
Bay.
Going, we're talking about week 2 match. We're talking about divisional round matchups now, probably.
No, I'm talking about wild card.
No, I understand, but I'm saying right now Green Bay is the 1 seed and Tampa is the 2 seed, so those are not even wild card round matchups for them.
True, but they all kind of had the same record, right?
I just don't think Dallas, like Tampa. We'll see Tampa play Sunday night before we record this, but Green Bay's 10-3, Tampa's 10-3, Dallas is 10-4. Didn't play great on Sunday.
Yeah, but
Arizona's reeling.
Next week they play the football team. Then they play the Cardinals at home, who are in shambles. Then they play the Eagles, who they own. So it's not crazy. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Dallas. Again, I'm with you. They do not look as good as the other two teams, but they could go 13-4.
They could. They're just not as Dallas is not as good as Tampa. They're just not.
I know, but depending on the way the tiebreakers work, who knows? Like you could get Green Bay or Tampa at the 3 seed. Like you're just a missed field goal away. That's my point. Like it's not.
I get it.
Those two teams aren't locks to be the 1 and 2 seed, even though it does feel like they should be. I'm not disputing that, but it's pretty closely jumbled together right now. Like it feels like in the AFC, the Chiefs are going to be the 1 seed, right? I feel pretty confident on that. I'm not that confident the way the NFC's top 4 teams are going to play out.
Well, if the Niners go to Green Bay. Wild card round, what's the number? 3.5?
I'd say 5.5 Packers.
Tampa?
A touchdown? No, I mean, yeah, probably.
No, I think it's 6.5, 7 if you're at Tampa.
Okay, let me rephrase that. I'm pretty confident that Tampa's going to run the table, looking at their schedule. So I don't think you'd have to fuck with Tampa. But I do think Green Bay, like, we've seen them have a weird game here or two over the years, right?
And lose, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, they just had a weird game. I understand the Ravens, and they got a lot of
but hold on though. So you said 4.5 Green Bay. You're going to Dallas. What's the number?
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah,
but I don't view Dallas the equals as those teams. But my point is just the numbers. Like, fuck, they could run the table. It's not out of the realm possibility. Their opponents aren't that great. Their toughest opponent is Arizona, who they get.
I just don't think. I think if you're playing Dallas in the first round, you're not shaking in your boots.
Well, no, but my point is, like, the Niners right now would pay whatever $5 million to not seeing Green Bay or Tampa in the first round to get either Dallas or one of the two NFC West teams, right?
Right, and I'm saying I put Tampa. I think Tampa would be a tougher matchup for them than Green Bay.
Yeah, I just think I'm just looking at Aaron Rodgers, who's the best player in the world right now, in my opinion. He had 3 touchdowns a day. Like, he's just. When they beat them 2 years ago in a big game,
they're the 1 seed and you're the 6 seed right now, so they're better than you. But you play them well. Like, that's the thing. You play them well. So, but they have Aaron Rodgers. Plus, Green Bay's cold.
I'd have to go back and watch that game. If I remember, wasn't he slicing and dicing them, and then something weird happened at the end or something? I mean, how it even got close. He fucking destroyed them that game.
He's much better than them, but I don't know. I don't look at that like it's an unachievable win for them.
Ultimately, styles make fights, and a huge reason the Niners in 19 and then the Harbaugh years, they were always way more physical and they were always tougher. I give Green Bay credit. This last year and a half, I guess it's more than a half. It's a year and 3/4. A.J. Dillon has added a huge physical element. Their defense is more physical. Like, to me, they're a little bit different team than I think the Niners beat the shit out of twice in 19. And Aaron's in a completely different level as a player now than he was that year. He's the same guy, but he's playing at a much higher level.
Yeah. And the Niners are worse in the secondary. But
they're terrible.
If it's cold and snowy and it's, and you're healthy enough at running back, like if Elijah Mitchell's playing for you, you can hang in that game. Now, a lot of that falls to Jimmy. But I think, like, back to the earlier point, the Niners have put themselves in great shape at 8-6. They just have. I mean, it's like when you go back and look at, what they were and what they are now, I think part of it is that even though they do have a fatal flaw, as you said, I think their pass rush has been fantastic. Like, really good. And it's made their defense more than serviceable. I think they're going to play well again on Thursday against the Titans.
Well, they have one of the best players in football right now in 97. And to me, he changes everything and the domino effect on the line. That if you could ever, big picture, get a little more talent next to him, it kind of is clear looking back, and he's clearly a better player now than he was as a rookie. But when you put all that, when you have such a dominant edge rusher and then you have talent down the line, there is no stopping them. And we remember how dominant they are. They are doing this with Arden Key, who was a disaster for the Raiders, who was a scrap heap signing. Ebukam, who anyone could have had. I mean, Armstead is one of the guys they've drafted in the first round they've paid. But beside him, they do not have highly touted guys next to him. So it does show you that, like, he deserves a lot of credit because he's making these guys. You have to spend so much energy. He's just never stops. And then these other guys, because of the way Chris Kasarik, that Jim Washburn coaching style, is just play with your hair on fire. Like, we'll give up some, you didn't hold the edge on a comeback, on like an end around, whatever. Just get up the field and cause fucking havoc. And that's one thing their defensive. How many sacks do they have when Bosa kind of crashes one end and the quarterback kind of has to rotate to the other side? And then he's like, holy shit, there's like 3 guys over here. And the guy's rotating around. And they just, you know why? Because that style that Chris, and I was around Washburn for 2 years with the Eagles, it is not allowed to not play hard. You're allowed to fuck up. Like, you are allowed to not contain. You're allowed to miss a tackle. If you are playing full speed every single rep, that's celebrated in the room. And that's one thing that clearly stands out in that unit. They just, and they do have, he clearly likes pretty long, like they have some size.
They have
like
a
all their
type.
guys are 6'4".
They have a type. I thought this, when I saw Arden Key get that first sack, it was just clear. Like, you think
he's
about,
not little.
You watch all their guys celebrate, like they have a type. And it's And again, you go, well, don't most D-line coaches want big-ass dudes? Yes. But they look like an SEC team relative to their opponents. I mean, these are big, big, big guys. And you're right. They get them playing really hard. Their depth up front without Kinlaw. It's been one of the most impressive things of the season, the way they've played up front without Kinlaw. And a lot of it's Bosa. Bosa has the effect that we always talked about Justin Smith having for Aldon Smith. Bosa seems to have that effect for everybody. And it's not just in the pass rush. It's also when they play the run really hard and well.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, I think Fred Warner was great. It started on that first series where he had the pass breakup on Lee Smith in the end zone. But I think one of the reasons they're in great shape is partly the conference, but they've just separated. There is wouldn't you say there's a clear cutoff line in the NFC right now? And it's after the 6th seed. There was a point in time when you looked up and the Niners were like 2-4, and the group of teams that they were bunched with, the teams that were kind of their peers were middle of the road football teams. Now they are the cut line is under them. The 7th seed, someone's going to make it because there's 7 teams that make the playoffs, but they are clearly ahead of that group of teams.
I hate doing this because I philosophically don't believe in looking in the rearview mirror and holding on to shit. And things happen, you got to move on. You spilled milk, you fucking just clean it up and go. But God, they got to be kicking themselves. Can you imagine if they just one of the games that they flubbed, right? If they right now were 9-5, you'd just be all of a sudden, who knows this? When do the Rams play? Tuesday?
The Rams play Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So that Tuesday night game
at 4
would be a big
o'clock.
swing. I'm in. I'll watch.
4 o'clock Pacific. It's the game is in LA. It's 4 o'clock in LA on Tuesday.
Those two teams still play. They don't get the following week moved back, right? They got to play again on Sunday. Kind of sucks. But they'd be right there because they would still play the Rams again. Arizona's coming back to earth. You can't do that. But it just shows you they deserve. Right. You said 2-4, guy. They were 2-5. 2-5. And that's just. I think they showed today they were 5-1 in their last 6. Now they must be 6-1 in their last 6. They have rattled off a lot of wins.
No, they were 2-4, 3-5.
They were 3-5. So they've won 1, 2,
5 of 6.
5 of 6
since the Arizona loss.
And really 6 of 8. That Arizona lose. What loss is worse? Because they're both divisional losses.
I mean, the
Cardinal
Seattle
game,
loss,
Colt McCoy, or the Seattle game, the way it looked.
Yeah, I mean, the Arizona loss it was Colt McCoy. They kicked your ass with Colt McCoy, and now they might fall back to you, and you've already lost to them twice. So in that way, that one hurts. But Seattle's just a worse team than Arizona, and that was when you were playing well. So they're both bad. Once I think on paper, the Arizona game feels worse because of who the starting quarterback was. The day of, I'd say Seattle's worse just because Seattle – actually, let me rephrase this. Arizona's worse. Seattle is the one you look back and go, what if? Moron, I think.
Because at least you just got your ass kicked. That was not a close game. Honestly, when I see 31-17, it's like, God, I remember it being 50-10.
I know. Yeah.
You're right. I mean, the homer, punt return, the fumbles, the picks. I mean, it was an embarrassment against Seattle. It really was. That to me is because even the Indy game, which was obviously a really tough loss, it wasn't a complete monsoon. And we can nitpick, and I remember you did. Kyle's problem there was you're getting they were just throwing it up to get PIs. You'd probably get the same. But in a monsoon, a little bit of a coin flip type weird game.
Forgot about that.
That was a bad game.
They've had but this is, there are years that.
That's where I think the Colts fall under that too. They're 2 8-6 teams. I think the Colts would tell you we fucking kicked a couple games.
Yeah. There are years that are perfect. There are years that are not. This one is not, but in some ways, the adversity you face reveals the character of your team. And it's been impressive. It's not done, but there's only 3 games left. One of them is the Rams. We'll see what position the Rams are in by the time Week 18 rolls around, January 9th. But Tennessee on Thursday. Then don't forget who they play January 2nd, the Texans. So they're playing well,
what it feels like?
They're playing well.
It feels like Tiger Woods probably in his prime. And if the season was a golf tournament, you shoot 80 opening round. You shoot 80. You're like, oh my God, is Tiger going to miss the cut by 17 shots? Comes back, finds a way to shoot like 64 and makes the cut. Now, he's not going to win the tournament, but all of a sudden it's just like puts together another like 68. And he's just right now in 20th. It's all of a sudden you let him get hot on Sunday. It's like these last 3 games. You're going to look up and he's going to finish top 10. Now, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. I'll be floored if they win the Super Bowl. But they beat this Titans team, then they beat the Texans. All of a sudden, it's like, God, are they the hottest team in the NFL going into the playoffs? You want to peak late? Could they make some noise? And if you make noise, you win a playoff game as an underdog on the road. I know it won't feel like that. If they were to win a game and the following week they lose, it would hurt, right? But big picture, taking a step back a month after the fact, it would be a huge success for Kyle to win another playoff game, right?
Yeah.
When it looked like he wasn't going to sniff the playoffs. We were talking people getting, maybe not him, but people getting fired and moves.
And don't you think there's a difference, though? Even like it looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs. Then they reached another level where it looked like, they might make the playoffs because the NFC sucks, but what is that really going to represent? And now they're actually playing like a team that deserves to be a playoff team, looks like a playoff team, and who knows, could win a playoff game. And then, you win one, the next thing you know, you're in the divisional round.
Did you see the slow motion of on Juszczyk's touchdown that made it? It would have made it 10-3. So on their first touchdown of the game,
yeah,
the Trent Williams down block of I don't know who the guy was. Oh my God. It looked like high school. It looked like a guy that you'd be like, this guy is going to Georgia or Alabama. This kid is just hoping to get into fucking college. To not play sports, but just to gain an education.
That guy's going to tell people about the time he played against Trent Williams.
Destroyed him. Oh my God.
St. Joseph Catherine's Catholic going up against Trent Williams.
The Niners, and so is Jimmy, they are a completely different team when their skill guys are healthy. I mean, they really are, because their skill guys, the trio, is so high end. And Jimmy, he looks like a real quarterback when those 3 guys are playing. Is he have some flaws? Now, today he was probably the most flawless game he's had this season. I don't think he had one bad pass, really. Did he?
I mean, he made the insane decision to try and throw the ball with 2 guys on him and one of them holding his arm, and he completed it to Jeff Wilson in the baby zone. Even afterwards, Even afterwards, though, he did the chest pat, like, oh, man, that was stupid. I don't know if you caught that. He completed the ball, but did oh, my bad. That was insane.
Did he stare at Kyle and do that?
He might have been. I don't know. He might have been looking at Kyle. He wouldn't say that to Jeff Wilson. Why would he say that to Jeff Wilson?
No, it was immediate Kyle. Look. Yeah, find the guy in the gray sweatshirt with a flat bill hat. My bad, dog. You don't need to yell at me when we score here.
I think his arm got stuck up, and so he knew he couldn't get it back to his body, so he just flicked it. But, yeah, I think you're right.
He was in complete control.
He was. He was in complete control, and he was really good. It doesn't, it's funny. You look at the numbers. It's the decision-making to get the ball into. I think the beauty for them is they get so much yak that all you got to do is get it to these guys. 18 of 23 for 235 and a touchdown. He was better than that. But I think if you go back, like you and I both, maybe a lot of people watching the game do the same, take notes. If you went back on your notes, if you could just go through your notes and look at every Kittle note or every Deebo note, because I noticed this early in the game, every single time they touch the ball, it's a play above replacement. It is better than a normal guy trying to do whatever it is they're trying to do. A no gain becomes 3 yards. It's honestly, I don't know if it's contagious. Juwan Jennings doing a lot of it too. But
I don't like Juwan Jennings.
I do too. Kittle 6 for 93. Deebo 4 for 60, but also 6 for 29 and a touchdown. Ayuk 1 for 36, but it was 36.
Well, here's where I give him credit, because I can be critical of him with his ball placement on pretty basic throws. It's 3-3 after the Niners force a punt, and they go on their first touchdown drive. The first play hits Ayuk on a slant, but it hits him right in the hands, and the guy doesn't even need to break stride. They score on that drive, and then the following drive they ended up giving up a fucking touchdown on that worst flag. So it's 10-10. First play of the drive, he hits Deebo for 32 yards. But again, a slant route that Deebo could just take, right? He let the zone dropper. He waited a split second, and then he hit Deebo when he was passing, but not behind him, not way high, just perfectly in stride. He hit both those guys where they can do it maybe a little above like their eyes, but where they do not stop running in their perfect route. And then those guys, both of them, they are really, obviously Deebo is a freak talent, but clearly Ayuk, very talented player in space. He hit the guy. He was like kind of going behind him. It was just, he's a natural. It's what's weird about his punt returning. He just can never, because, I mean, I don't know if Hightower knows how to teach people how to block. There's never any room. But if you can get Ayuk in space, I don't want to say he's Deebo because I don't think he'd be quite as physical, but he's a natural feel for angles and shit. You know how Kelsey is? Like
he's so natural.
Like, is Kelsey even moving that fast? But he knows the guy's angles, and Kelsey just kind of runs like a video game player, just avoiding everyone. Yeah. Ayuk's faster than that, but he's kind of the same thing.
I think Deebo Samuel does the same thing too. Like the Niners guys use, what's the field, 52.5 yards wide?
I thought it was 53.5.
53.5. Like they use that half yard on the sideline really well. Deebo and Kittle.
Oh.
Barrows had a good article in The Athletic about Kittle uses like these PVC pipes to balance on. And Ayuk, they just use every inch of the field really, really well. I think you see a lot of trust right now in the Niners pass game. A lot of trust between Garoppolo and the receivers, but even I think some evolved trust with Kyle and Jimmy. You know, after the Falcons got stopped on 4th down on the first possession, the Niners, Jimmy threw the ball over the middle twice from, you know, basically his own end zone. The first one hit Jennings in the hands. He couldn't catch it. The second one was on 3rd down, was the ball that Juszczyk caught, and he came up a couple of yards shy of the first down marker. But that ball early was a little dangerous, but it was a good throw. It was a dangerous throw. It was over the middle from his end zone, hit Jennings in the hand. It was a tip ball. They're lucky nothing happened. But it was a good throw from Jimmy. So, yeah, I mean, Garoppolo was good. And this is not like some new level of this is what you get sometimes. This is why Jimmy Garoppolo is an NFL, you know, top 20 starting quarterback. That's just what he is. That's what he is. And that's good. That's, in the words of which golf announcer was it? Better than most. He's better than most.
Dan Hicks.
Dan Hicks, better than most. He's not elite. Yeah. He's replaceable, but he's better than most. And it was impressive.
Where he definitely has value.
It sounds like a backhanded compliment, and I don't mean it to be.
Is when you play lesser opponents, and if you have 17 games, 8 of them are going to be, if you're just on a team worth their salt, are going to be on a lesser opponent, a lock lesser opponent. He can be good in those games. So then if you can just get half of the next, 11 games, him to be solid in 6 or 7, you can get yourself to boom, right? If he's good in 8 and you win 6 of those, and then he's good in another 6, you get yourself to 10, 11 wins. And, he early on, he was really iffy. Now, he was banged up, whatever. They had injuries with the wide receivers. But, one thing that comes out the better your quarterback plays, and, we'll get into Hightower later, I'm going to give it – Wes Welker's probably a pretty good wide receiver coach because these guys, like Juwan Jennings, getting better. And the better your quarterback plays, the reason you know about, Pringle and some of these random wide receivers on the Chiefs is Mahomes, right? It happened forever with Brady and New England, right? He wasn't – hell, Peyton Manning, their third wide receiver was always really famous. Well, the better and better Jimmy plays, Juwan Jennings starts being a factor. Was it you that says there are no role players on bad NBA teams? They don't exist. The Kings have no role players. The Kings just have players. Well, the New York Giants do not have a number 3 wide receiver. Neither do the Jets. Neither do shitty. You know who does? Good teams like Tampa, defined roles. Green Bay, defined roles. Chiefs, defined roles. Bad teams don't have players with defined roles, right? You have a nickel corner or whatever, but specifically.
Well, the problem is when you're bad. Yeah, but the problem is when you're bad, the little things don't matter because they're irrelevant. You're so far between bad and good.
But when Juwan Jennings becoming a guy matters, right? Having him as your number 3 guy. 1, he brings an element that the other receivers don't. He's fucking big. And 2, he's clearly pretty talented in the red zone. He's better than Sanu. Now, I think Kendrick Bourne, who they lost just because you can't pay third wide receivers when you draft a guy in the first and draft a guy high in the second, you needed to replace that. And it was tough for a little while. I think this guy is starting to fill that void a little bit, which is important. When they were really good, Kendrick Bourne makes plays. This guy makes plays, and their offense is better because then it takes pressure off the running back.
He's really good in the run game. I think he's Juwan's just really physical. I mean, before they started throwing the ball to him, he was constantly on the field just blocking.
No N'Keal Harry trade then if he comes into his own probably then?
I think Juwan Jennings has been better than N'Keal Harry.
Did have a sweet catch yesterday. High pointed it in the.
How about the Deebo throw? You had to see the replay on the camera, but
I just love it. He's like, I'm throwing this fucking ball.
I love it. It's like the fake run, stop.
I didn't see the I wasn't paying attention. Maybe I looked at my phone. What was did the DB get his hand on it? Was
the camera, the high camera didn't turn because everyone's saving money. And no, it hit the DB square in the back behind the number. DB didn't know it was coming, was just running like this, and it just hit him. Line drive hit him in the back. Was not even close to a jump ball. Maybe he tried to go back shoulder. He might have been trying to go back shoulder.
This is nitpicking, but for whatever reason, and the Patriots feel like the Boise State teams that you and I used to live through that clinic on trick plays. They never ran a double pass, a double reverse, some weird play that did not work. I feel the Patriots are very, very similar. The Niners are fucking god-awful at trick plays. Kyle, just let Jimmy just run normal plays. Don't run double. They don't even come close to working. It's weird for a guy that's very offensively talented at dialing up plays. His trick plays suck.
The problem is some of his regular plays are tricks. So when he goes like hardcore trick, it's like it feels weird to him. I think it doesn't look like their trick plays are comfortable at all.
No, not at all.
It's like all their trick plays are just because Deebo asked if he could throw the football this week.
Do you know what would be a potential trick play? Just thinking off the top of my head. Everyone knows the toss is coming. So the wide receiver that's on the toss side, he does like 2 steps like he's going to block, but it's Ayuk. Then he turns around, full sprint, takes the handoff from Wilson or Elijah and just takes off around. So it's an end
around the other end, like he does like a jet sweep.
It's a reverse. No, it's a toss reverse.
So is it a fake toss to the back and then hand off to the front?
The toss is to the back, and then the back has to hand it off to Ayuk.
Gotcha. But Ayuk is running behind him in a loop, or runs like straight across in like a jet sweep angle?
I think he goes behind him. So Ayuk goes 1 step like he's going to block, then turns around and kind of gets depth. As the tosser's headed down, he runs around him. Be risky. Maybe you toss it, maybe you hand it off, but I think there's something there.
I kind of like that play, but I would say no depth. Run it jet sweep straight across to try to get to the angle quickly.
The problem with that play, if someone gets penetration,
if they're washing,
the washer or the penetration, you could get just ball flying in the middle of the air. It's risky to go behind them because if they're not, the mesh point's a little off, and you toss and you miss, then all of a sudden the ball's way back there. It's a risky play. You can only do it up until probably one to do against the Texans up 15.
How about this? Same play. Kittle lined up left tight end. Toss play. Fake the handoff to Ayuk coming back the other way. Kittle leaks out. Toss to Kittle now back towards the original side of the toss. Might be overthinking it, though.
Don't hate that.
Or you could just hand it off to Deebo for 15 yards. Deebo has scored 7 touchdowns in the last 5 games. He has 5 straight games with a rushing touchdown. Every game for 5 weeks, the same exact thing happens. For 5 weeks in a row. They hand it to Deebo from like the 19-yard line. He hits the sideline and boom, just races in and scores a touchdown or cuts it back. The same thing.
How does he not get touched on his touchdowns?
It's insane.
I don't get it.
No one wants to touch him, maybe. I don't know.
I think Jonathan Taylor isn't the streak, didn't he miss a game in the streak, or is the streak he played the whole game? Because isn't Jonathan Taylor 1 game away from 11 straight games with a rushing touchdown, which would be the record? Maybe he's 12. You see that number?
No, I didn't see that stat.
So did you see the play Jonathan Taylor to end that game where he takes it to the house?
Yeah.
He has had 10 straight games going into that game with a rushing touchdown. That last night, because a lot of people, our boy Derek Pop was like, he should have hit the ground. But
absolutely.
That scored, he has 11 straight games. If he one more game, so 11 straight games with a rushing touchdown will be 12 and will be an NFL record for him. I think he's tied right now with like LT. Pretty incredible
that is
accomplishment.
Andre on the stream says your play sounds like a loss of 15.
Well, their plays
Antoine's-
aren't working either, so I'm just thinking outside.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Antoine says Tito's vodka raffle, please. You know, the legal team has gotten involved. Apparently, I don't think we're allowed to give away Tito's vodka. I think is that true?
That's they got strict rules. You know, it's a crazy industry with everyone competing. They turn each other in, so we're just following the rules. We would have.
Yeah, we
wanted to, and they wanted to, but it's just, you know, it can get dicey out there in the booze business, right? It's like Colts versus Patriots. You know, it's just a war. It's like going over across the middle with Tart. You know, he just fucking blast you. Tart can hit. You got to give Tart credit. That guy will hit you.
I'll tell you what, man. I know we have these conversations every time Kittle is hurt about whether or not it's safe for him to play the way he plays for his career safety. But when he's healthy playing the way he plays, he's not going to win an MVP. I'd be interested to look back and see like what the most votes, the closest to an MVP award a tight end has ever gotten. I'm sure we could guess, but he is without question one of the most valuable players in the NFL. It's almost impossible for a non-quarterback to be the most valuable player, but he was out 3 games. They are a completely different team with him healthy. And I mean, it's incredible, really. As Kelsey has done it his way, that Kittle has done it his way. It's a little bit different, obviously, but the physicality that he plays with, his catch early in the game, where he got hit low, hit high, popped right up, after he had already taken a 25-yard kind of end around. It's just not end around, but like a swing pass, just ridiculous.
There was a play that, you know, Trent Green, they and was it Harlan today? They don't get to call this. They don't get to do many Niner games. And the game was in control, and it was one of those, George got it, and he saw, like, you know, I could take on this guy, or I could cut back to the middle of the field, and the entire Atlanta Falcons defense was there. And Trent was like, I don't think that he realized he was taking on the entire defense, but that's just kind of George. And I had the thought today, like, it's set. With Waller being injured, the 2 all-pro tight ends are Kelsey and George. Now it's just who's going to be the first team, you know, tight end. Obviously, Kelsey's receiving numbers are going to be better than George's. George is 57-6. Kelsey's already at 80-7. But there is an element for one of the better running teams in the league that they could not operate without George Kittle. So, you know, we'll see. These next 3 games are going to matter. But I think George is making a play to be the first team All-Pro.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that'll be a challenge, right? Kansas City probably, like you said earlier, is going to be the 1 seed in the AFC.
He just had a pretty legendary walk-off touchdown.
He did. No, he did. And he's played in every game, right? George has missed 3. Yeah, Austin says Mark Andrews.
I'm not going to argue if you give it to him. Just he's a spectacular player, and he is, you know, you have, I mean, he's got 83 catches. They got 3 games left. I mean, how does he not get to 105, 110? I mean, but I think George is an all-pro. And that, to me, is a big deal where it looked like, you know, is he going to have a down season? Going to be banged up? He's come back with a fucking vengeance. And
what's his numbers right now?
Travis Kelce?
No. Kittle.
He's 57-6.
I mean, Mark Andrews is 75-6.
Yeah, but to me, George is the more impactful
I agree.
player in the
I
league.
agree with you.
I feel like George is going to get some votes.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, if you've been, you know, watching them and like, these are just big games they're playing right now. Obviously, Kansas City's playing the big games too. But I mean, this stretch now that he's in, 9 for
part of it is just
13.
You know, this is the shitty part about tight ends is there's only one guy on a squad, right, for the All Pros, where the wide receivers there are several. Like, it's a pretty loaded position, right? Like Mark Andrews, like, I'm not trying to diminish. I watch him. The guy's fucking good. I would take Mark Andrews on my team. Just feels maybe I'm too close to the sun here, but
no,
George to me is easily one of the top 10 non-quarterbacks in the NFL.
I'd say it's as simple as this. Kelsey is great. Kelsey legitimately first-team All-Pro. There is not another person in the National Football League that looks or plays like George Kittle plays. There's not anybody that plays like him this well. Just period. There's not. Now, again, that doesn't mean he's better than Kelsey necessarily, because Kelsey's different. But there's nobody like him in the league. Not a soul.
Would you say when this season ends, Kelsey's going to be a first or second team All-Pro, or if he's the first team, it'll be his 4th first team, and he's had multiple second teams, and he's going to have 7 straight Pro Bowls and a Super Bowl championship, and is he a lock Hall of Famer when this season ends? Like, is it over? Like, what else?
my first reaction's no, but
I saw a stat on Thursday night that he had his 6th straight 1,000-yard season as a tight end. No tight end had ever had more than 3 straight. I think you're talking about Kittle, I'm talking about Kelsey.
Oh, you're talking about Kelsey. I'm sorry.
I'm talking about Kelsey.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Do you view Kelsey
He's
as a Hall of Fame player
Famer.
when you?
I do. Yep.
Right now. Like if he never played another game starting today, he's in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kittle's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Kittle is a talented part of what made, and this is what we've talked about it before, and there's just because it's not like Kelsey is not running over the middle, but he is not as violent on contact. He's a little more. I'm not trying to call him a pussy or anything, but you know how Peyton Manning in the pocket would just hit the ground? Like I'm not trying to prove anything. Like Kelsey's got a little he'll just like hit the ground. He's smart. And I think part of it is that's the way they've coached him. He's too inevitable. Part of what makes George fucking awesome, and probably most little kids that are Niner fans, probably their favorite player. Because if I was a 10-year-old, I would have an 85 jersey. But when he jukes a guy, he looks for like the 3 of them and go, I'm coming after all you guys. It's like, George, you are so invaluable to this team. And I remember talking to Kyle about it, actually at the Combine. It was when he told us he was going to come on the podcast, and then Corona really kicked in about 2 weeks later, and then that's kind of gone out the window. But we were bullshitting about George. And before, I was in the scrum, because I wanted to kind of show my face before I walked away with Bob Lang and Kyle. And I asked him a question, like, they're about to pay George, right, that offseason. And I'm like, does it make you nervous that he's such a violent player in the open field? Can you coach that out of him? And he gave kind of a stupid answer. And then we bullshitted as we were walking away after he said he'd come on the podcast. He's like, that was a good question. I'm like, I'm not a media guy. We're just talking ball, 2 ball guys talking ball. And he's like, it's a hard balance, right? How do your best players, you kind of have to let them be. And there's once you get to a certain point as in a career as a human being, like part of what made Frank Gore great as a football player, not a fighter, he got KO'd last night, I think, by Deron Williams, is that Frank had a natural ability, right, he just didn't take shots. It really was not part of his game. He avoided
his longevity is why we talk about him, because his numbers were compiled over a long period of time. But if you told me George is just healthy for the next 6 years, I'd say there's no question he's going to the Hall of Fame.
But there is no change. But do you agree there's no changing? And it's not like they're even trying. George is what George is with the ball in his hands. Because he's the same. Every single time he catches a ball, he does the same thing. I'm going to fucking destroy.
There was a play today. You talked about the cutback, which was even more crazy. There was one today where it was basically a decision. Go out of bounds or go this way at somebody and try to get another yard. And we know what decision he made. He made that decision. And it got him another yard or 2. But, the greatest show on turf's philosophy was, no, save the yard. We'll get that yard on the next play when we get 11, 12, 13 more.
And if anyone in Kyle's camp's listening, remind them that, everything negative said earlier in the season was Guy. We've moved on, and we've given you flowers. We would love to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, we're just... I
might have said a thing or 2 as well, but,
As well? I had his back. I had your back.
I got some beef with. I do have some beef with one of his guys though, because we just it's getting to that point where.
By the way, before you go there, on Kittle, he's 28. He'll turn 29 in 29 next year, October 9th. Do you agree if I told you Kittle gives you 14 games a year for the next 5 years, that becomes that's a Hall of Fame? It's going to be a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, I think the difficult part is just going to be. And maybe Kelsey's just going to go down as like an all-time great Hall of Famer. His numbers are going to be so stupid in the pass game, right, Travis?
Yeah.
I mean, guy, he's had 85, 83, 100, 97, 105, 83 and counting, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 8, 10, 5, 11. He'll have probably another 10. So it's fair or not, he is going to be compared to him. And it's like, there are no stats, and this is the hard part with offensive linemen. Like Larry Allen got into the Hall of Fame, Trent Williams got in the Hall of Fame, just because there's no stats for them. It was just clear. Part of Kittle is like, well, half his game is just clear, right? He's just a dominant player, which will factor in with, a guy like Mayoko will be fighting for him in the room one
part
day,
of the Hall of
potentially.
Fame is like you didn't watch the games, right? The Hall of Fame is not made on paper. Like I watched the games.
He's a Hall of Fame NFL talent, no doubt about it.
That's what I'm saying. So if he's a 14-game guy for the next 5 years, he's a Hall of Famer because I know what he is when he's healthy. Complete game changer. Different than everybody else. Different than there is not anyone else like him.
Well, because
how is somebody else going to? Who else is going to be like him?
Someone DM'd me and they said, "Do you think?" Because he's like, the last couple years in the draft, a guy like Noah Fant will come out. They'll be like, generational player, but it's like he's a tight end that doesn't block. So we just speak about him like a wide receiver. Well, half of his job he can't do, right? And let's face it, most guys don't ever turn into Travis Kelce. So it's like this guy runs a 4.4, and I was like, there's probably some merit to that. Are you a generational talent at tight end coming out if you're not 8.5 out of 10 as a blocker? Like just because you run really fast? Like because I go back to Vernon Davis, who was a generational talent, right? At that time, we'd never seen a guy. He ran a 4.3. He was Jack. You remember Vernon as a blocker? It's like that motherfucker was powerful at the line of scrimmage. He was a big part of Harbaugh's running game. Vernon could block defensive ends in his prime. So it's like, I do wonder if we don't give enough credibility at that position sometimes. And part of it is like you get Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews, if you watch the Ravens, where is 89? He's like in the slot. Like how often, when Kittle's in the slot, that's not normal. Sometimes I look for Kittle, his hand's in the dirt. He plays like the tight ends you and I grew up on, right? Chumura, Brent Jones, Novacek. Those guys were not. The wide receivers are out standing up. The tight end's always on the line of scrimmage, and that's part of it with George. Like Travis Kelce a lot is standing up. George does every once in a while. I'm not saying he doesn't, but he does play much more traditionally, like guys in our generation and older grew up watching tight ends, where now it's like, I bet if we just did a 2-year breakdown of Noah Fant, he probably just stands up a lot. Why wouldn't you? I mean, he's 6'5", he can run a 4.4.
260 pounds.
If you didn't know who Kyle Pitts was,
receiver,
you'd never heard of him or any thought of him. If I just said, "What'd you think of number 8 today?" You'd be like, "God damn, I get why they traded Julio."
I'd be like, "It's a good receiver." Yeah. Right.
And he's a good example. Wasn't he considered a generational talent? Then that's how they talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, part of that I think is just if you're going to be a big guy. I think that's mostly where that comes from. Is most big guys can't catch. Most big guys can't run at 250 or whatever. Noah Fant was coming out.
I know, but he plays a position where it's like they do need he needs.
Yeah, I would call that a generational prospect, just because there's not in the percentage of guys that come into the NFL, a very small percentage look like Noah Fant with his speed, but.
It's not fair. I mean,
like to me, it's like if you don't block and you're just like a top 10 receiver, then cool, that's what you are. But that's not generational.
Well, like if Kyle Pitts was on,
and Noah Fant's not that. I don't think.
If Kyle Pitts was on the Niners, wouldn't he basically just be? I mean, obviously he's much better than Juwan Jennings, but that's what role he would play. They'd put him in the slot, wouldn't they?
Yeah. If he was on this team,
I'm saying if he was on the Niners, wouldn't he just play over 15 and they would just have 3 wide receivers?
But I think Kyle, part of it might be like, okay, you're gonna block a little more. You're gonna do a little more than Juwan does. Kyle might do that with him.
But this is where you get to a point where some guys, whether it's like Zach Ertz is not scared, but he's not a blocker, right? Yeah. So it's like you waste time when you just put him, just let him run around.
Put Juszczyk over there.
Yeah, just why you have guys on the team that just can just block, But there is something to be said about guys that can do both, right? It is a huge. Because isn't it just like if the guy's on the line of scrimmage, like 85 is, I think this is why Philly kind of transitioned to Dallas Goedert. There really aren't that many tight ends like that. But you don't know when you just run a normal 2 wide receivers, Juszczyk and a running back, and George, if they're going to run it or pass it.
Well, I think that to use a baseball comparison, I think the tight ends that play like George Kittle, and there aren't many, even maybe you could argue this for even Kelce. Cal Ripken Jr. revolutionized the shortstop position when at 6'3", which is big for a shortstop, and a guy that could hit for power, started playing that position. And then you started getting more players like that who were not, that was largely glove only. Like you just played defense. That was your thing. Anything we got out of you, at the plate was bonus money, and it wasn't much. Like you weren't hitting third or fourth or fifth. And I think that's Kittle. That's what the modern tight end is like. What the shortstop became when they started getting bigger players who became real, true weapons, and I guess in some ways positional mismatches in baseball. But they are mismatches in the pass game because defenses aren't built to treat that guy like he can catch.
You know where the greatest defensive shortstop of all time went to college?
Cal Poly? Ozzie Smith?
The Wizard. Yep.
But
isn't that a good example? Guys like Ozzie Smith, like Omar Vizquel, Cal Ripken was not them, and then Alex Rodriguez, Manny Machado, all these guys turned into something different.
Yeah. Carlos Correa, and those guys like Vizquel and Ozzie were so elite defensively that they got away with it. But then it got to a point where other teams, you lose a little there defensively because you want to get a little offense. All right, you want to start this conversation about? Let's talk about some of the concerns for the 49ers here down the stretch. And I guess there's only one way to start that conversation, right?
Hi, Taylor!
So let's evaluate where this is, because this has become a movement.
Okay. I think you have to make a change. They have an assistant special teams coach. I've never heard of him. No one really has. He's a 34-year-old up-and-coming coach who was a couple years ago an analyst at Alabama. So there is no guarantee that he's equipped to take over the job. But I saw someone in the comments on the YouTube a lot earlier when we first got on mention something, and then I think their comment was, I don't know how we blame coaches for players fumbling. That's the type of mindset people not in football have. That is a complete wrong mindset. Every single player on the team is on there because the coach okays it. Now, obviously, Hasty is like third or fourth. They've had injuries. But this jumped the shark from, I don't blame Hightower anymore. It's like when really shitty players stay on the field. It's no longer like a couple games, whatever, a season, 2 seasons, you continue to start and you suck. It's then on the coach. It is now on Kyle Shanahan allowing this to happen. Their special teams coach fumbled the first kickoff of the game. I don't know how Kyle. Here's the thing, also, guy. I'm gonna guess Hightower. He's been the assistant coach, the special teams coach all 5 years. That means he's got a contract extension because when he got hired, he did not have a 5-year deal. There's a chance he makes $1 million. And he is in a business where you get paid a shitload of money to produce. You either produce or you don't. It's why Jason Garrett got fired. It's why coordinators get fired midseason in college football, in the pros. Because if your unit is not getting it done. Now, Kyle's the boss of the entire organization, and he's friends with this guy. But his unit, time in and time again, continues to royally fuck up. It's one thing, I wouldn't hold it against them if it's like their punt return. Like Brandon Ayuk never has any green grass. Maybe it's just whatever, Brandon. I don't hold that against him really, because a lot of teams
punt return is good punt return's 8 yards. So that's to me not.
Even the occasional kick return, which the Niners gave up one easily to the 40 in this game. They got lucky. Their defense got a sack like 2 plays later to push them back 15 yards. But it's like, I even give you the occasional, let them out. Instead of tackling them at the 22, they make it to the 40. The turnovers guy and the scoring plays are unlike anything I've ever seen. It is easily one of the worst. We've been doing this now together for 7-8 years. I've been watching pro football for 11 plus years. It's easily one of the worst individual units on a week-in, week-out basis, coordinated, like offense, defense, special teams, we've ever seen. It is terrible. I mean, kickoff return, punt touchdown, fumbled punt. It's just something after another. It's like, well, Hasty fumbled it. Well, one, he put Hasty out there. And two, Kyle keeps allowing him to do fucking all this stuff. Like, what is going on? It is, you played the Falcons today, whatever. They are not going to be able, you said that you think they could beat the Packers? No chance they could beat the Packers if their special team's going to do this type shit. They will lose in the playoffs if they have a turnover or give up a touchdown on special teams. 100%. I would bet $10,000 right now that if you told me, John, in the first round of the playoffs, the Niners either create or turn the ball over on the special teams or give up a touchdown, I would say loss. Because the margins are just too slim in those type games. And I don't see, I would be expecting disaster to strike on Hightower's watch. And I don't root, luckily in the NFL, he'd still get paid. He's not Urban Meyer, he's not getting fired. When you get fired for being bad at your job in the NFL, you're not fired for cause. You still get paid. it is. It's not even head scratch. It's an embarrassment. And now, like, I'm starting to blame Kyle for allowing this to happen. He's the head coach.
Yeah, I don't expect him to do anything about it. There have been a couple situations this year that Josh Norman being one where I thought cutting the player was the action he would take. Maybe you step in and have somebody else handle kickoff returns, but he certainly has the power to do that if he wants. I thought the fake punt touchdown against Seattle was egregious. I thought the fumble coming out of halftime against Seattle was egregious, given that your starting returner had been hurt in that game. That was the game that Trent Cannon got hurt in. So you knew you had a replacement coming out, Travis Benjamin, in the second half. And the number one communication coaching point should have been, Travis, you're going to put both arms on the ball. And if you have anyone get close to you, I know you've returned before, but the number one point here is going to be, do not fumble the football. Do not fumble the football. But by the same token, I don't know the second time it happened too. I thought it was very good special teams coaching today by Atlanta. The short kick, hasty looking into the sun, didn't know what to do with it. Now, my counter would be, okay, what would you do if you were them? You have to move your guy up, maybe, expect it. I don't know. Maybe that was on tape. Maybe it wasn't. But that to me was that moment was more about getting out coached than the fumble by Hasty on the first return.
That's what I was going to say, Guy, and that's what I skipped over when I was just reading how you got to demote him. He has clearly become the mark. He's become like players, right? It's no different than, was it you talking or someone talking why you could never – oh, yeah, you and I talked about this within the last week or two about, F1, they have the racer and the team, part of it, they broadcast it, why you could never do that in football, having the headset live, or it'd just be impossible. It is clear, though, and this because it happens to individual players, right? When a guy goes down with an injury and a rookie corner comes in, or just Ambry Thomas is in the game, you're saying, go after 20, go after 20. Hightower is now the mark for oppositions. Like that, okay, you could convince me, and it's freak fumble. Whatever. I disagree because you put that guy who's got a fumbling problem fucking back there.
But you have a roster. This is your roster. So
then,
you only
then
get so
put
many
someone
guys
else up. You got to make a decision.
They've had
That's four
3
roster
returners. They've got returners all over the place.
But here's what you cannot argue, that opposing coaches week after week, Seattle, Minnesota, and specifically this week, because it's unique the way that they popped it up, view Richard Hightower as a fucking bullseye on his back, and we're going to expose your ass, and we're going to take advantage of it. And that, to me, now listen, I don't see
maybe. Teams try stuff on special teams all the time against.
But the Niners group keeps not handling it well.
Right. But I'm saying people do it. Like people run fake punts. People do the short pooch kick.
We see a lot of fake punts fail.
Yeah. I'm just saying that he got out coached.
The Niners guys have no clue what's going on. Like players freak when just like the pooch. It's not even called a pooch or whatever. The short kind of high kick that like the 15. You can, if you just watch football like on a normal October day, Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes I guess in college guys they just don't have the leg, but college teams do it as well.
Yeah,
and you can tell like a well-coached team knows exactly what to do. You either Peter it, you do whatever, right? I guess with a kickoff you have to you can't just let it sit there because they could recover it. But the guys are coached up what to do. The Niners, like everyone's looking at each other. Guys, it's fucking December 19th. We're week 14. They got no goddamn clue. None. So it's like, I am no longer going to keep Hightower. They're not, it's on Kyle. Kyle has to, like, I can't even imagine how mad Kyle was. But what's the point in getting mad? Your guy's getting worked. He's getting throttled every week. And it to me would be pretty killer if they lose a playoff game. You agree it'd be hard to stomach, though it wouldn't be shocking because it's happened all season if they lose a playoff game by 5 points or something and they give up a special teams touchdown in that game.
Absolutely. And I hold my breath every time there's a kickoff return. And the good coaches know. I mean, if you talk to any coach who has any clue, who cares about special teams, they always talk about the win percentage that changes when you get a special team score. They all talk about it. So, I think when I look at a good team, usually you have 1 or 2 guys that are kick returners coming into a game. Like, if there's a kickoff return, it's going to be 1 or 2 guys. They've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different guys. Actually, Kittle, but that doesn't count. They've had 5 different guys like back on kick return this year, which is too many. But the irony is their number one guy, who I'd say is Trent Cannon, has been dicey. But I also think there are different if I was going to play devil's advocate here, I'd say, first of all, I agree wholeheartedly. A special teams mistake in an evenly matched game swings the entire result of the game in the other team's favor. Everything. But I think there have been other.
It's almost the equivalent of like in a playoff baseball game, an error where you airmail a first baseman and it leads to a run, you lose 2-1 or something.
Yeah,
right?
or just if you told me, it's the same as if you told me ahead of time there's going to be a pick six in this game. I'd be like, well, that's. Yeah. But I also think there have been times this year with the Niners offense early in the year where it felt like the sky was falling, and Kyle Shanahan didn't do anything but just keep doing what he normally does, and it corrected itself.
This
now,
has been
the
a long
difference
season, though.
Yeah, the difference is that on offense they have real playmakers, and their special teams guys clearly are not in terms of returners specifically. And we're not just talking about returners; we're talking about getting out coached. They just don't have erasers on special teams to make up for some of this stuff. But to me, their primary issue is they don't. I don't care. I mean, the fumbles are just. It's crazy.
Would they be better off, I guess, as a kickoff returner, just fair catching it, and punt returner?
If they had the college rule where you can fair catch it on a kickoff and take the ball to the 25, that'd be great.
Yeah, they would have to start implementing that.
I love that.
I think this guy clearly he's not communicating. He's just doing a poor job coaching because no one ever has any clue what's going on. It's what it feels like, ever. And just these pretty basic, like the NFL. This is the National Football League. You're not going to class. You're spending all time, and like that kick. Clearly, Hasty had no clue, but the other guys were kind of unsure. Like the other two guys, like it's just constant confusion. And when you're confusion, what does any coach tell you? From Dilfer, his high school coaching guys, to college, to the pros, like if you're thinking, like part of being coached up is like I just know what to do. Like when you just watch the Patriots,
that felt to me
fuck up, but they just know what to do, and you just make full speed decisions. I can live with a full speed mistake. The Niners make a lot of decisions where they're like on special teams.
John. Yeah, I mean, JaMychal Hasty has returned 7 kicks in his career.
And he can't be back there. Like that. That's where I go back to Kyle Shanahan.
I think it's I totally. But they're running out of guys. Other guys getting hurt. Trent Cannon's hurt. Even he's made a mistake, right? And it was like, get rid of Trent Cannon. He's their guy, actually, as it turned out. Remember, he made a couple. I don't know what game was that where he had the fumble.
Seattle, where he fumbled the punt, and
then he had the drop. Was it the muff and the pickup? And then fumble again or whatever it was. But
in fairness, he almost died like last week, so I'd give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, he had a long since kind of bounced back. But my point is that that was a moment where Kyle could have forced a change and didn't. And I think they've had some moments over the course of this year that have felt like moments to panic. Not that making a change, not that fixing special teams would be panicking, but he hasn't done it. And I think clearly the mark on that special teams play was Hasty. They knew he didn't know what to do, and he acted like he didn't know what to do.
And that's
part of it was I think part of it was
that's a coaching problem.
I agree to a point. But again, you got a guy out there who's got 7 returns in his career. I don't know. There's only so much you can do for him.
I was in the car this morning, and God, I feel for John Lund. They go on the air for Niners pregame for radio at fucking like 7 a.m. I'm like, God, this day sucks. Oh, Johnny, I hope they're paying you a lot for this because holy fuck. But, he's on, it must have been 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were talking about Cordell Patterson. And I had forgotten this, but, the Niners wanted him this offseason. Like, they made a legit play for him. And clearly they would die for a guy like that, right? That you could just put a kickoff returns, punt returns, and then also use on offense. But he would be for sure your kickoff and punt returner. That if he fucks up, I'll tip my hat, whatever. I will not yell at anybody. But they need to find a way to get that guy, because that guy, if you are going to keep Hightower, because I do not believe Hightower's locked to get fired. Kyle doesn't want to fire him. He's not going to fire him. But you better believe if I'm Jed, like I want him gone. I'm paying him $1 million. He's not. It's just a black and white business, and the guy is failing. So it's like I'm paying this guy $1 million. He's not. He's failing. Like that's what Jason Garrett got fired because he failed. Like it's part of the job. You either get the job done or you don't as a coordinator. And this guy, he just couldn't be any worse. And it might be the greatest guy. There are a lot of great coaches who aren't that good at coaches. It's a hard job. There's a small percentage of them that are actually good, and a large percentage of the guys in the NFL probably aren't even that good. Now, it pays, as John Madden said, you go from gym teacher to genius. Well, in 2021, you don't even need to be a genius. You go from gym teacher to making $600K, $700K. If special teams coach, $950K. They're living like Wall Street brokers right now. But in Wall Street, if you're not making sales or generating money, you get fired. If no one listens to us, we would go out of business. It just would be crazy if this guy survives, and it's a long way away, but it's like, we've all watched football long enough. It doesn't get any worse. It just does not get any worse than what we're watching. And it's every element now. It's not knowing what to do. It's punt returns. It's missed field goals. It's like everything. Every possible thing. So it's like, well, we don't give him any. So if he doesn't get any credit for Robbie Gould or Wisnowski, then all he would be coaching then would be like the blocking schemes and stuff, right? Which clearly he doesn't know what's going on. It's crazy. And I lived it.
Were they bad on special teams last year?
Just because you work in the NFL as a coordinator or position coach does not mean you know what you're doing. And
were they bad on special teams last year?
I mean, they were 6-win teams, so they were bad at a lot of places.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's not like he's a first-year special teams coach who's never.
No, he's going on his 5th year.
Before. Yeah,
their special teams have not been like they've just blended in. I would say.
Right.
I don't remember them like kickoff returns or blocking punts or like the Colts, for example. One thing Burkhardt said last night, the guy blocked a second punt for a touchdown. He's like, that can't happen many seasons where a guy blocked 2 punts for touchdowns in a season, the guy in the Colts. You just watch the Colts, Bubba Ventrone, their unit does shit. You block a punt for a touchdown, it feels like you can allow multiple touchdowns. It wipes it off. But the Niners never cross anything off. There's no balance on the ledger. It's just like negative, 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 neutral, neutral, negative, negative, couple neutrals, negative, missed field goal, negative, neutral, neutral. There's never like, did you see that double pass they ran on the punt for 50 yards? Like they don't even have the capability. And maybe Kyle doesn't allow him to do it because he doesn't trust him, and that's a problem in itself.
See, that I would disagree with that. Like, Kyle running offense is so much better than the Niners special teams running trick plays.
No, I'm saying if Kyle doesn't allow Hightower to do that, it's a problem in itself. If Hightower comes to him with an idea and Kyle doesn't trust him. Oh. Because part of it is, like, gotcha. if he's like, well, listen, I'm not going to micromanage. I hired this guy. Well, if he tells you he has a sweet punt, you better believe him.
I have a feeling, I've never thought of that, but I have a feeling that Kyle Shanahan views any special teams trick play as the worst play in his offensive playbook.
Yeah, I'm not against you on that, but you have to admit that over the years,
they
great teams, Patriots, the Boise State teams, LSU, Bama,
absolutely,
like, everyone runs a.
Do they run a
teams play.
Fake? Was there a fake with Juszczyk this year? No, that was not a fake punt. The Juszczyk direct snap play.
Yeah, it was. He went under the center and then he snapped it and went, and it was.
Austin says Golden Tate has posters of Ambry Thomas up in his room this week. While we're talking about weaknesses, not a cornerback guy here. I mean, I think going back in my history of doing like a call-in shows, I think cornerbacks are probably at the top of the list of just people that just take heat from the fan base. Play calling is number one.
It's bullpen and corners. It's just
and play calling, offensive coordinator.
Yeah. And
for the 49ers in 2021, special teams coach. But just, I'm not like Dion here, but Ambry Thomas in position a lot, John. He's in position a lot. It's the breaking up of the pass from being in position that proved to be problematic for him against the Falcons. If Kyle Pitts had caught that ball before halftime, that would have been pretty devastating. Not to the game, but just to the psyche.
Do you know what's funny? Is when they showed the first replay, I'm like, I think Ambry Thomas picked this ball off. His knee hit before he went out of bounds. And then they showed the second replay. It's like Kyle Pitts ripped it out of his hands. Is that oh my God. I do think the bar is so low. I give him some credit for just being there. We have seen there was a play today by Josh Norman nowhere near the wide receiver. The Niners, their corners have not been near wide receivers. So you just being in place, to me, is a step in the right direction. But he even shot his arms up at the right time a couple times. His arms perfectly at the right time. Boom. And the ball didn't budge out of the guy's hand. It happened twice. And on top of that, the third was the Pitts play where he literally ripped it out of the guy's hands. This guy's where's he from? Michigan? Like, this is a big-time Division I player.
I do Harbaugh's strength and conditioning program. Sometimes I wonder about watching him. But this is a weakness of theirs. It just is. And it's not just him. Like, he's on the field. We've seen other guys who are not him be in compromising positions all year long. This is one of their weaknesses. This is a problem for them.
Didn't you feel like today they didn't even really fuck around with Norman that much? They just went relentlessly after 20?
Yes. And now we'll see. A.J. Brown right now is eligible to come off IR with a chest. Julio Jones hurt his hamstring again on Sunday in a loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Golden Tate, sneaky, has been on the practice squad for the Titans, but has not appeared in the game. I would defy you to name Titans receivers right now. But, Julio being potentially likely out. I don't want to say likely. I don't know as we record this.
Well, he left the game and then he was ruled out, which is never a good sign.
That's true. From the game. And he'd only been back 2 games from the hamstring. And I don't know. We'll keep an eye on what A.J. Brown's situation is. Maybe the Niners catch some breaks this week with the Titans' lackluster offense.
Well, their running backs aren't great either with the big fella with a broken foot. Their offense looks pretty putrid when you watch them.
Their most dynamic offensive player is probably Tannehill at this point.
Who is not a
very receivers
good player.
can't play. No, but he's a little athletic.
Yeah, he can.
No, I agree. I've never been pro Tannehill, but they did their meeting on the Steelers logo today and then got beat. They have scored their last 4 games, 13 points.
They did a pregame meeting on the Steelers logo?
They did the Raiders Chiefs thing, yeah.
Whose fucking idea was that? I mean, what are these
Bring it up,
doing?
fellas. Bring it up. What are you doing? Their last 4 games were 13 points, 13 points, 20 points, 13 points. So they're averaging 14.75 points in their last 4 games.
Can I name you just a couple guys that caught balls today and play who he played for?
Please, but yeah, okay.
Nick Westbrook-Ikhine caught 4. He was the leading pass catcher, 4 for 32. You ever heard of him?
Westbrook-Ikhine. Never heard of him, John. I'm
Chester Rogers. Chester Rogers, 4 for 30. Heard of Chester Rogers?
Feel like I might have heard of Chester Rogers.
I'm pretty sure he's a former Steelers.
Can't guarantee it. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine from Indiana. Okay.
Chester Rogers from... He played for the Steelers. That's all I know.
I'm going to go Michigan State, just because a lot of receivers have played at Michigan State.
I could go Rutgers as like an undrafted free agent or something.
We're going to go with Grambling State is the answer on that one.
Little HBCU.
Yep.
Dante Foreman is a running back. Okay. Jeremy McNichols, I also think they're running back. And then they have a guy named Anthony Fursker.
Oh, yeah.
Caught 2 balls.
Legit tight end. He's been on their team.
Dante Hilliard. You're playing. They are really compromised with their skill. I mean, you're talking about a team that's big 3 when fully healthy is Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, and A.J. Brown. You agree if those 3 guys were healthy, this game would be a mother? How would you? The Niners, 2 guys full go, if they were 100% healthy, would have no chance on God's green earth to cover either one of those wide receivers, right?
I think I'd run Ambry Thomas back out there this week, John.
I would too. The Niners get lucky that they're injured. In fairness, they've had a lot of these situations on the flip side for them playing these games, right? Where they've got into games with rosters that'll look like this. So you got to take advantage of it. But this is, as of Sunday night recording this, could this be like a pick'em? Are we sure the Niners are even going to be the underdog in this game?
We're not. Niners get a lot of just general major mainstream media and public love and non-mainstream media love. So they might be favored by Thursday.
Let's guess by kickoff. I'm going to go Niners -2.
Have you thought about is A.J. Brown playing in that scenario?
Either way, here's my thought. The game opens like Titans +2, and there is just, Titans -2, so the Niners are getting some points. And it's one of those in like a 48-hour swing where people just fucking hammer the points.
I bet they open at like -1.
And it closes.
Maybe it closes at like 2.5 or 3.
Yeah. I could see a huge swing. If A.J. Brown by like Tuesday is like, hey, we're going to wait another week. Because they're not – the one thing the Titans are pretty lucky is sweeping the Colts. They're still multiple games ahead. Like they're 9-5, so even if they were to lose this game, and then the Titans finish with the Dolphins and the Texans. The Dolphins, is that a lock win? That's not an easy game, but it'd be coming off a long week.
But again, the Titans aren't scoring points. They're averaging under 15 points per game in the last 4 weeks.
So
they're
you think
not
it's possible
scoring
points. Could the Colts catch them?
I'm not looking at the standings right now. What do you?
Well, let's say that the Titans are 9-5. So if they win one more game, they'd be 10, their final record would be 10-7. But they swept the Colts, so the Colts would have to go 2-1 to tie them. Now, I don't know if the tiebreaker is just straight us versus you, right? Is that the way it works, even in division? I think it's your divisional record.
In the division, yeah.
Like just because let's say they both finish 10-7, but the Titans are like, well, we swept the Colts. I don't think that matters because we've seen that before. I think if we went 5-1 in the division and you went 4-2, we would get it over you. Obviously, the Colts wouldn't be able to go 5-1 because they've lost. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think just those 2 games stand separate from the overall 6-game divisional record. Right. So right now the Colts are 3-2 in the division, and the Titans are 4-1, and they have their last game against the Texans. I think the Titans are they just got to win one more game, and they're basically a shoo-in because the Colts.
Yeah, well, it's crazy.
It's crazy that it's even this close.
They may not.
The Colts play the Cardinals, the Raiders, and the Jags.
But it's felt like the Titans haven't been themselves for over a month, and yet they're still in the driver's seat. It's kind of wild.
They did. Didn't they start like 8-1? I mean, they had an incredible start this season.
Yeah, and the Colts started behind the 8 ball.
And they beat them twice. So
and
they
beat
really
them twice.
threw them back.
So they got really. Imagine if their schedule had been backloaded with the Colts Titans playing twice in the last month,
or even just one of the games was these last 3 games. What if you told me right now the Colts were hosting the Titans? Remember that game they lost in overtime where Wentz threw that bad pick, but that game was going on this up, in 2 weeks. What would you think? The Colts 5-6 point favorite?
Yeah, maybe more. I mean, if they were at home, maybe
Colts just housed the fucking Patriots.
The Colts are playing really well, and the Titans are playing like ass. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, it's Thursday night. Weird things happen. Road trip Thursday. It's
long trip.
Nothing easy.
Long flight.
Nothing easy about it. But the other concern being when's Elijah Mitchell come back in a crazy way? And you've heard people say this for years, right? Players would rather have a concussion than a knee injury because you can come back from that concussion in all likelihood in a couple of weeks. But it's not his concussion that's keeping him out right now. It's soreness in his knee. Jeff Wilson is just like, it's weird. He's like always ready. He's not good enough to be among like the top 3 guys, but he's just over there, ready if you need him, and just always looks the same when you play him. So maybe that settles things down a little bit.
He is, I think going into the season before he sat down in the locker room and tore his MCL, he is a fantastic 3. Right, I think ideally they wanted Mostert to be their 1. They wanted one of the rookies to let the cream rise, and then Jeff Wilson to be their 3rd. Has experience, knows what to do, and it just shows you with the Kyle Shanahan running backs. Like Jeff Wilson did not miss this game. I do think it's pretty concerning, guy. Shattered finger, concussion, and the reason is because of his knee soreness. Now you could be like Al-Shaair, Elijah Mitchell. If this was a playoff game, they could have gone, and maybe that was their thinking. They're playing the Falcons. I would say, though, conventional wisdom, that is not the way NFL teams operate. Like, if you can play, you can play. And if you can't, you can't. Like, this is not baseball or basketball.
Bosa had a little scare, was good. They're dominating the game. He still comes back and plays in the game, right?
It feels like Kyle.
Like, you easily could have said, like, you know what, Bosa, let's just keep him off the field. We'll get him to Tennessee healthy. That's not how – they didn't play the game that way, and they don't play – I'm with you. I think he would have played him too.
But I'm not even putting that on Kyle. Like, I think most NFL coaches, like, if you're dressed and you're good to go and the trainer's like, he's fine, and what do you think the guy – this is where I think fans want to see their guys play. I think a lot of the media sometimes freaks out. You do understand these players enjoy playing football. Like, the moment the trainer's like, Nick, you're good. Nick's like, good, I'm going back in. Like, you think Nick wants to work all week to like, no, I'll just take the second half off? No, if you're Nick Bosa, you like lining up against guys who aren't as good as you and kicking the shit out of them and racking up sacks. That's what's fun. That's literally Ray Lewis said it. You pay me Monday through Saturday, Sundays are for free. Like the football, the actual playing of the game, when you're good at football, hell, even like Kyle Pitts is fun. You're like, I'm just lining up against this 20 guy. He can't cover me. It's got to be a sweet feeling.
Well, I went
people
back.
Underestimate that aspect sometimes with football players.
Jay Billis tweeted the other day a video of his draft night scouting report of Steph Curry, and in it he said, I can't emphasize enough, this guy loves playing basketball, and that's a really important trait. He loves playing. He loves playing. Guys who love playing want to play. Guys who love playing want to practice. Guys who love playing, like Nick Bosa, the quality of his fitness is just, I mean, that's a guy who just thinks
out of this world.
Seems like a guy
out
just,
of this world.
If you told me Nick Bosa, a day has not passed since he was 7 years old or maybe younger that he hasn't thought about football, I'd believe you. Not a day has passed without him thinking about football. I think it's what age, Nick, when was the last time you probably went a day without thinking about football? And it might have been, I don't know, pre-ability to speak. But
when do you think the last day?
Because his dad played football and his brother played football.
Kyle Shanahan's 41, 42 years old. When's the last day Kyle Shanahan did not a day where a football something did not cross his mind?
I mean, it's probably pre-consciousness, like
3-4 years old.
Yeah,
range.
like once he was watching his dad, he probably didn't have a day go by. But definitely, I would say like after 9 years old, because Kyle was just convinced probably and it wasn't that he was drawing plays to coach. It was he was going to be an NFL quarterback, right? I don't know if you're aware, but he played receiver in college, John. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah. That's why he's so hard on the receivers. That's why he coaches the receivers so hard.
I don't like football a hundredth of what Kyle does, and I mean I can't. Again, just thought about it, just something random in my head. I mean, it's probably been 15 years.
I'll go to bed thinking about like that could be a take. You just. There's a take.
Well, sometimes I'll just be sitting there, and it might not even be a deep thought. It'd be like Dan Lanning, and that's just the thought, like just the name.
Let me Google him real quick. It's how many times both of us do this? Like, I'm just gonna Google this guy, and then you just look at a football reference and a wiki, and one thing leads to another, and the next thing you know, a take just appears.
I do it all the time. Oh, this guy was on the 14 Alabama. Those other guys were on. Oh, and then you just go down a rabbit hole.
It's totally. All right, we talked about the Titans how about this, John? Let's update the Arizona Cardinals. Huh? How about this squad? Huh? Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray are now 5-8 in their careers in the month of December. They are 1-2 in the month of December this year. They put forth a gutless performance against the Detroit Lions today. They were 0-4 in the red zone. They threw the ball zipping and over people's heads, at people's feet. Kyler, the whole team looked like they weren't about it. Jared Goff played maybe his best game of the year. They now have back-to-back losses. They've gone from the 1 seed in the NFC to maybe coughing up the division, and it probably wouldn't be as noticeable if they didn't enter the year 4-6 in December in the first 2 years under Kyler and Cliff.
I think I would allow them just a mulligan. I would not be hard on them if they had won Monday night. I'd be like, they ended the division. Like, I get it. I understand it. They had played 14 games going into, 13 games, and they had won 11 of them. I'd be like, I get it, right? 17-0 at halftime in Detroit, lackluster effort. To come off for a loss, and let's face it, a loss where you kind of got worked by the Rams. I don't allow you a mulligan type game when you're coming off a loss. That's unacceptable. And especially like you said, based on their history, that's a devastating. They were down 17-0 at halftime. 17-0. The Lions defense gets worked. Like, how's that possible? 17-0 to have Jared Goff just, like you said, 21 or 26, 3 touchdowns. I saw him just make some great throws. People are like, God, is Jared Goff back? You got to give credit to the big guy. Like, his team, I would say start to finish, has played pretty consistently beside maybe a game or two really, really hard.
Yeah.
It started in that first game. They never quit against the Niners. And I would say 90% of their games have been just fight, but under no circumstances. And I get this week, you see they I think we had talked about it, but they placed Hopkins on injury reserve. They're hoping to get him back. They have played enough games without Hopkins that I give zero excuse for that. With Rondale Moore, A.J. Green, Christian Kirk, Zach Ertz. When I just read you the Titans line of those guys, Christian Kirk, Zach Ertz, A.J. Green, James Conner. Like, just those guys is enough with Kyler Murray. The score should be 30-12 Arizona, right? Like, it should be flip-flopped. You just, that can't happen. That cannot happen.
Not when the heat's on. Not when it's like, it's winning time. And this is, again, this is the time of year that you've struggled. Like, I would imagine if we said to Cliff at the beginning of the year in his office, Cliff, let's talk about your goals for the year. I bet one of his goals probably was, we got to be better in December.
You know who they got this week?
Who?
Indy.
Where's that game?
It's in Arizona.
But Indy still feels like they got to keep winning, right?
What's 12/25? When's Christmas? Saturday?
Isn't that Christmas always on the 25th?
That's Sunday night
Christmas
football.
on the 24th?
Christmas is on the 25th. Christmas Eve's the 24th.
I thought Christmas Eve was Friday. You're saying Christmas is on Sunday?
I'm saying Christmas. What did I just say? Christmas Eve is the 24th, right?
Okay, yeah. So Christmas is Saturday. So they play on Saturday.
So excuse me. They play Saturday night. So they play in what Indy. So Indy gets an extra day of rest. They're clearly playing better. How do you not like Indy in that game? I don't love that matchup for Arizona. And then you get at Dallas. Like this. Could Arizona lose like 4 straight games right here?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's they're 5-8 in December under Cliff and Kyler.
And then, I mean, we'll see this Tuesday game. If Seattle gets their mojo back, Seattle by that time could just be done, or they could be playing for something. We got a long way to go, but I can't just write off that Seattle game yet as nothing. No. Because if they win Tuesday, Seattle's alive and well.
They win Tuesday. I will say this for the Lions, John. Check this out.
What time you say that game is? 2:00, or is that the Raiders tomorrow?
No, Raiders are at 2:00 on. Did I say 2:00? Yeah, Raiders are at 2:00 on Monday. Vikings-Bears is 5:15. 2 4:00 games on Tuesday. This is like baseball's wild card Thursday. Seattle at the Rams, football team at Philly.
If you were Seattle and the Rams, wouldn't you rather play at like noon? Like, what does Tuesday at 4:00 mean to you? Why don't we just get the game over so we can rest and get ready?
The problem is, I guess you're right. Noon. You play games at noon Pacific's a weird time to kick a game off, though. Even 1:00. Played at 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying like middle of the day. Yeah, 1:30.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why am I waiting till 4? Like, then we got. What are we doing here?
I'll say this for the Lions, John. They have 4 losses by 3 points or less this year. They lost by 2 to the Bears. They lost by 3 to the Browns. They lost by 2 to the Vikings. They lost by 2 to the Ravens. And they had a tie. So they're probably thinking instead of being a 2-win team, they could easily have. Now you don't take all those games and make them wins, but they've been in 5 games that they could have won.
This is where you kick yourself, man. If all of a sudden, let's say the Rams win. If Arizona drops these next couple games, and if you're the Niners and you win this Thursday night game, you would be able to get that 5th spot. But losing both those 2 games, your division record sucks because you got swept by fucking Seattle. You got swept by Arizona. So the best you can do is if you beat LA that last week, you're 2-4. The division killed them. Dropping those 4 games, which 2 of them are just ones too hard to shake. You know, you can shake your rookie quarterback on the road, even though the game was close score-wise. I can live with that. I can live with, the Seattle game, Jimmy got hurt, Trey comes in the second half. Like, obviously, Cannon fumbled.
The first two.
But the loss to Colt McCoy, you're going to play Colt McCoy, and the Seattle loss, it's just, those 2 games are won this offseason, however this season finishes. And more than likely, it's going to finish with a playoff loss. You're going to think about those 2 games because of where it potentially would have put you. Because then all of a sudden, a couple upsets, maybe you get a home game. You just never know. And the 5th seed, you're playing a team that whoever's going to be the 4th seed is the team you'd want, right? Whether it's Dallas, whether it's Arizona, or whether it's the Rams. That's the team you want.
Yep.
God, I don't know why, but I kind of pivoted off Arizona, saying, they've kind of turned the corner. You just watch them, you go, they got too much talent. They're too good on defense. They're just going to end up with 12 wins.
It's a lesson for the future. We'll see how this year plays out in the postseason. But You just can't buy. It's looking like you can't make your conclusion on the Cardinals until we've played the month of December, until we've gotten to New Year's.
Well, one elephant in the room in the NFL is not the guy's going to lose his job or anything, but the reason that within an hour of the announcement that Lincoln Riley had accepted I almost said Chargers, the USC job, Adam Schefter had a tweet that said that Oklahoma would be interested in Cliff Kingsbury. Well, the reason that is because Cliff Kingsbury, when he got the job, signed a 4-year contract, and this is year 3. And I think his agent, and rightfully so, they started licking their lips a little bit. They went, well, they're having this historic season. Obviously, it's unique because it's truly the quarterback and the coach are tied. It's like, we're going to cash in. We're going to get this guy like a 5-year, $50 million extension or whatever. Now, and their owner is notoriously a little cheap, even from what I've heard, even now that they've made and generated a ton of money over the last decade. Can you just give him like a 3-4 year extension? It's hard because he's very tied with your quarterback and the offense, but we got to let this thing play out a little bit. I'm not in any rush to just keep this going for the next 5 years. Just, are you guys going to lose like 5 straight games to end the season and end up a wild card? Like this, last year was bad. I would say this year would be infinitely worse, right?
I would agree. I would also wonder, is the Arizona Cardinals franchise in a position to be not keeping 10-win coaches around?
They have had Arians, so they know what a big-time guy looks like.
And their job, in theory, is attractive because they have a pretty good roster.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're going to fire him. I'm just saying it gets a little like, we'll give you like a fake extension, but we're not giving you some enormous.
Is Steve Keim going to set a record? Like gets to hire like 12 coaches in his GM career in one place?
Well, there's a reason the big fella sits next to Bidwell. You got Cliff down there with the players, and you got
a lot of
popcorn and Diet Coke.
I got to tell you, boss, this guy's changed. He's changed. Money's going to his head. I think we got to make a change. The key, if you're Keim, is to be preemptive. Like, I got to tell you, boss, I think he's changed. I think we got to do something about this.
30-12. Oof. The Niners have had some awful losses this year. Seattle didn't even count for a minute when they missed when Russell was out. This is easily the worst of the Arizona LA. This is the worst loss so far of the NFC West. The Lions with a lot of
in the league this year. Because I know
Bills,
you got
Jags.
10 wins, but
what's worse, Bills, Jags 9-6, or this 30-12?
Bills, Jags 9-6, pretty bad. That's bad
loss.
Because they're out of the playoffs right now. At least you're a playoff team. But there's only one team gets a bye. It's the 1 seed. You were in the driver's seat for the 1 seed. Like, being the 1 seed is a huge deal. You get beat out for the 1 seed because you lost in some shootout with the Rams. Fine, like whatever. But you take yourself out of position because you lose on the road to Detroit. Again, the prerequisite for Detroit is that you show up and play hard because you're better than them, but they are going to play hard. It's not a surprise when you play the Lions and they play hard. They play hard all the time. So it's not like you played Detroit and normally they mail it in, but on this particular day they were good. No. If you've watched the Lions, and for whatever reason, I've seen the Lions like every week, they're in a ton of games. Like, there's no reason to treat the Lions like they're a clown operation. And by the way, someone put in the Jared Goff is 8-1 against the Cardinals now. Is that true?
Well, McVay had never lost to him until this year. So yeah, he had never lost to him.
Like,
before.
how do you take that guy? Like, what a joke performance. Just a joke performance by them. I mean, really an embarrassing performance by them.
Yeah. And to me,
and again, I watched some of it.
Coming off a loss. Do you agree coming off the loss makes it really bad?
And it's hard, right? It's hard. But again, there's a difference when you go there and you lose 24-21. It's like, shit. But they did not show up in that game.
17-0 at half. 17-0 at half. And this is the thing. And I noticed it watching that game. For a split second, I thought it with the Falcons. It's rare in college football. Usually you just separate, on the Oklahoma-Kansas, even though somehow Kansas, that game was really tight. Kansas and Texas, they beat them too. But for the most part, when you watch a game like that, right, like Alabama versus Vanderbilt, every once in a while you get like, God, it's only 10-7 at half, and then the final score will be like 48-13. In the NFL, I think it's very, very risky when you do a no-show and then the game gets 3 scores or something. Like there's the talent in the league is too good to it's hard to flip a switch. When you get down multiple scores in the second half, you can pull it off every once in a while down 14-0, 5 minutes into the game.
Well, I thought the Patriots were gonna. I texted you this Saturday night, what Mac's gonna lead them back. They were getting beat, but they weren't getting. They were just getting beat, right? You agree? New England wasn't no-showing the game. They were just getting beat.
Yeah, I guess he threw a couple turnovers. Like he threw a turnover in the red zone that was a big deal. They were driving the field. Yeah.
I think the question with Arizona.
That was a violent game. The Patriots were not inferior to the Colts. Their quarterbacks threw a couple bad picks that cost them. And then they got back into the game with a Wentz pick.
I just think there's a question with Arizona. Does their quarterback have an arrogance about him that keeps them from? I don't know. There's just something is off with them. It felt like maybe they'd overcome it. It feels like it's a combination of their coach and sometimes their quarterback, and that's not ideal. But they're going to have a chance. The thing is, they'll have a chance in the playoffs.
Well, these next 2 weeks are going to define. They're going to define their season. These next 14, Colts, Cowboys. It's a big stretch for them. Because all of a sudden, are they going to be 10-6?
Potentially tied with San Francisco.
Buckle up.
We got the Jags draft order, John. The Jags, good week for them. They fired Urban with cause and are now in the number 1 draft pick slot. So now they haven't actually saved. I guess there's going to be, this is the good thing. I love this with Urban. Firing him with cause means we're going to have some leakage. We're going to have some accusations. We're going to have because you got to make the case. Why are we not paying you? So we're going to get some stuff here, which is good. I'm glad that story is not just going away. Obviously,
he went on record. Did you read his story?
I did. What'd you think?
It was, when I say read, I power skimmed. It just kind of stupid. If everybody saw advisor, would you have told him to say anything or just stay quiet? Do you have to speak? What do you have to say anything? Are people waiting for your quotes? I don't know if they are.
To me, the only way your quotes help you is if your quote's I've done some introspection. I really misjudged, what it would take to manage an NFL team, and I brought the wrong approach. But you don't get that you don't get introspective that quick. It's been too short of time for that, right?
It was 2 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not getting that right away. It's just there's no way. You hit your sister, your mom's yelling at you. You don't immediately go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." That comes 3 hours later after the grounding. So, I don't. There's nothing to gain, especially when it's just the world is soft. I told the coaches this.
I would have recommended not saying anything. I just thought it was something. Now you could argue no one even really cared. People were making fun of him, but it feels for
Who's
a guy
he coaching
who's accomplished. I would never say never, but he's never getting an NFL. Will you agree? NFL's done. It's over.
I got Weber State on the list, John.
Do you think a Power 5, a real program, would hire him? This was pretty bad. And now he's kind of old.
I feel like it should be an automatic yes. Somebody would do it. There's 65 or whatever these teams. One. All it takes is one.
No, I'm not saying. I'm talking about the top 20 programs, the LSU's, the Oregons, the USC's, the Ohio State's, that level of program. So. Is he hireable for a place that people want to go? Right, Texas, Oklahoma, Clemson. I'm talking that level. I'm not talking.
All it
Oregon
takes
State
is one AD or Board of Regents who's he's got the plan. I don't know. Yeah. I would not rule it out, but it doesn't feel like that's happening. I would say no. To answer the question, I say no, but I'm not ruling it out by any stretch.
Do you think if he would have got fired 3 weeks ago, there's a 50-50 chance he's at Oregon, or do you think he's kind of unhireable for them?
No, I don't think Oregon was going to hire him. I don't think Oregon was going to hire him.
Because they were clearly going after, they wanted a high-level guy still, right?
High-level,
yeah. Lanning.
Yeah. Chip, a guy they know. Lanning, clearly. They just got Bo Nix. G on the stream says, Urban Meyer, why I joined the Athletic.
I think that's 4 years ago. I think those days,
I don't think Times.
Yeah, you guys notice no one's joining anymore? I think they cut off that stream.
Are they selling to the Times? Is that what's happening?
I think an undisclosed. I don't know how well it's going. And again, I'm a loyal reader, but
I just got to know when I've got a subscription, so I enjoy it. I go to it.
well, guy, I've been riding the free description when I worked there 3 years ago. I just keep signing in, but it's only $1.99. Isn't it like $20 a month or a year or something?
I'm not sure.
I do wonder this, like for the Oregon thing, even Chip, for example, who, I think has his flaws, even his lowest point never felt anything nearly what we just experienced.
No, like I said the other day, like he won 10 games twice in the NFL.
No, but I'm just saying like the negatives about Chip, the personality with other people, feel like, he can be prickly and he's not the happiest guy, but like Urban's like, this guy a legitimate bulldozing asshole.
Yeah, Chip's like, he doesn't really want to talk to the media, but his coaches, the coaches who are, if you ever ask like coaches who are loyal to Chip, like they're really loyal to Chip. If you talk to people, right?
Oh yeah. Ryan Day's one. If you ask Ryan Day who you're closer with, Chip or Urban, I bet your ass he'd say Chip Kelly.
Interesting.
And he got the job because of Urban, right? But it's why actually Chip brought him to the Niners and the Eagles. A big reason, like I think gets thrown around sometimes in the NFL. Like was a quarterback coach in the NFL, like for multiple teams, and is like for what we talk about a lot of these times, like Urban never coached, right? We talk about Rule 1 year as an assistant offensive line. This guy was a quarterback coach in the NFL, multiple franchises. Now, both years they didn't win that many games, but to me, that's like the guy spent some time, 24 months around NFL players every day as a quarterback coach. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
Like he knows what it looks like to like talk to a pro player.
Well, imagine we're like, you look at a guy's resume, he spent 1 year in the league, let's say, or 2 years or 3 years. But let's say it's even one. Like, that's a lot of practices. That's a lot of coaching pros. That's a lot of meetings with pros. That's just a lot of it's not a lot relative to experience, but it's a lot of just interactions with a year is plenty of time for a quarterback, an offensive coach, a GM to go, you know what? I really like the way this guy worked.
Bill Musgrave get fired?
I don't think so. Did I miss that story?
I didn't think for some reason it's got in my head. I think he's still there. I don't know why.
Yeah, I thought some Cal people were hard on him this year. I thought watching him a lot that I think he's a pretty creative offensive guy. I think he's a good coach.
Well, anytime your quarterback goes pro and every team's going to try to move him to a different position, it's pretty telling, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do at quarter. Oh, they got Jack Plummer from Purdue portal.
We got a lot of quarterback movement in the old portal guy.
Bo Nix to Oregon.
You remember Bo Nix was the guy facing Herbert 3 years ago.
True freshman year.
Remember he made a couple plays in that game.
He did. I remember one he made a throw he got crushed on. He was tough.
He goes on. He's a weekly guest on Coward's SEC show, J-Boy, who on the Volume. I listened to an interview last week before. I just wanted to hear what he talked because he had just put his name in the portal and he was talking about leaving. And I think, in the SEC world, I don't know if this is the greatest comp, but he's like a Jimmy Garoppolo in the sense of very polarizing player. Like he started 3 years at Auburn, he won some big games, but like you listen to him talk, like he's a pretty intelligent guy. There's a reason he started.
Son of like his dad was a big time quarterback, right? Wasn't that the deal?
The coordinator that they're bringing from Florida State, I think, worked at Auburn in 19.
Okay. Kenny Dillingham.
So I think he might have been the quarterback coach or assistant offensive coordinator because Gus technically called the play, so he knows him pretty well. Bo Nix, immediately probably one of the better quarterbacks in the Pac-12 next year.
Quarterback play wasn't good in the league. Now, Bo was looking back at it today. He was like a 59, 60, 61% passer at Auburn.
They got a lot of defensive backs they're throwing against in that league.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Ty Thompson, the guy that was like their big prospect at quarterback. I saw him play this year. I'm not sure that he's ready, but I don't know. Coach him up. We've had many people chime in, by the way, that they're seeing the Titans, Niners at -3 or 3.5. Niners favored by 3.5.
Might be a stay away as a gambler on that one. That seems a little weird. Just short week.
Maybe they know A.J. Brown's not coming back. He's eligible for the first time this week.
What I would do is I would take Deebo, I would take Ayuk, and definitely Kittle, Trent Williams, Fred Warner, Bosa, Al-Shazir, and maybe Tart and Ward, and they would just sit in ice baths Monday, Tuesday, up until the plane leaves on Wednesday. We would just do mental reps, no on the field, anything beside walkthroughs. In the walkthroughs, you'd have to wear sandals, so we cannot run it would be very light because we are more talented than this team. But there is no, we got to rest everybody. The talent disparity is there.
Did you see? You just made me think of injuries. I don't know if you were watching any of the Packer game when I guess Aaron Andrews had a report early in the game that Wink Martindale said he wants Aaron Rodgers to leave the game hurt. Did you see that report?
I saw people. Yeah.
Oh, people were talking about. I didn't realize. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe she said it. People were talking about it. She came back and was like, just to be clear, he said sore. He wants him to leave the game sore, not hurt. Even though deep down, of course, he would want him to actually leave hurt, but that's not what of course, he didn't say that. Yeah. There's a big difference between sore and hurt. I get what happened. She's just kind of paraphrasing a quote, hurt and sore, hurting, but it gets taken like he's, what's his name? Greg. Who's playing him in the Kevin James show? That's what I want to know. Not Greg. I want to say Greg Robinson, but that's the old Syracuse guy.
Yeah, it's Greg Williams.
Greg Williams, yeah. Who got that role in the Kevin James show?
See, I think they pivot from that. He's coaching the kids. There's no like diving into the assistant. I don't think you see many of the Saints assistants or like Reggie Bush or Breeze. I think it just goes right to the kids. Kevin James.
I need a Greg Williams Saints character.
Can someone in the stream, is Sean Payton coaching this game? Didn't he get COVID a couple days ago? You got the game?
I don't know. Did you know while we were doing the show, the Ravens went for 2 and lost? They came all the way back, scored a touchdown, down by 1, went for 2 and lost against the Packers.
I just assumed that they had lost the game because they were down like 10. They went for 2 to lose the game.
Yeah, I got to go back and.
Why does he keep going? Why does he keep going?
I got to go back. Well, I mean, Warren Sharp is texting him during the game.
I just typed in Harbaugh to John Harbaugh. Will have a lot of questions asked about going for 2 again and not making it. Coward on John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh should get real coach of the year consideration. John Harbaugh trying to win the game right there. Ryan Clark, bro. John Harbaugh has done a masterful job. Harbaugh is definitely go for 2 here. Yeah, it's just.
I mean, they have
a big moment on the internet.
Yeah, God, I wish I was paying attention.
Might have to go back and watch that tomorrow. I didn't watch that game. I didn't really see much of it.
Maybe we do a little. We'll see what comes this week. But a lot going on. We got another Shave It or Save It to get to this week. Just a busy week. I mean, 2 games Monday, 2 games Tuesday. Somebody at the NFL office is like, not the worst thing in the world. You want to post? They should. If I were them, I'd start postponing a game to Tuesday every week.
Oh, we got to figure out Tuesday. We got football on. Let's figure that one out.
Yeah. And then obviously Thursday, we got a late Thursday show because the Niners play Thursday. So we'll be on after the game Thursday.
Cool.
So. All right, everybody. Get after it. Get after this week. Have a great week. Thanks for hanging with us.